All right, everybody, good evening and welcome to the Town Council meeting for this evening, January 9th, 2017. Item 1 on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance and Moment of Silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda, we have certificates of appreciation. This is with regard to a project that was done over a year ago. It's with regard to 64 Old Town Park Road. This was a blighted property that had been a problem property for a number of years in the community. There were a number of trash, trucks, old abandoned cars, and it was with the work of a lot of some very specific town employees who went above and beyond to try to remediate this property and were ultimately able to do so. And I'd like to recognize them if they're here tonight. So if Laura Regan from the Zoning Enforcement Office is here. Laura, 64 Old Town Park Road was a blighted property for many years that not only impacted the surrounding neighbors, but the community as a whole. From 2004 through October 2016, over 200 tons of demolition and bulky waste were removed from the property. While many people were involved in this cleanup effort, your involvement and leadership are singled out. Without you, it is unlikely this project would have been completed. So on behalf of the town of New Milford, thank you. The professionalism and dedication, your work reflects on our great town, and that's the same language for the other people as well. But Laura and the rest of you, thank you so much. Mike Sarver as well, our Public Works Director. Mike Westman, our Public Health Director. He's here. Sharon Millard. This is a collective one. The New Milford Police Department, they did a great job escorting people in and out. When we deal with private property, it's not always a collegial experience. So we got Chief Boyne here. Thank you so much, Chief. And last but not least, Kathy Reynolds. This was a tax foreclosure property, so Kathy is here. I would give this to her as well. I don't see her. If not, I'll make sure that she gets it. Thank you all. Good job. Okay, moving on. Item 3, we've got public comments. Just be aware in the agenda, so all persons interested in speaking public comment must sign up before the meeting starts at 7 p.m. Public comments may only be addressed to the town council. Initial comments are limited to 5 minutes or less. If a member of the public would like to speak in excess of the 5 minutes of time allotted, they may request to do so, and time will be set aside at the end of the agenda for that individual to speak for an additional 3 minutes. Mr. Bear, you have a list of public commenters, I imagine.
I am going to be the executioner. You will hear a timer go off. If you hear that timer go off, I'm going to say, please sit down.
Is it too late to sign off?
Pardon?
Is it too late to sign off?
Yes, it is.
It is.
Diane Dubriel.
I did bring out handouts so you can follow along if you want to do that. So I'm Diane Dubriel. I'm chairman of New Milford Commission on the Arts. I'm also one of the artists across the street at Gallery 25, and I live in New Milford, and I want to say Happy New Year to all of you. So my purpose in reading this statement to you tonight is to publicly recognize the move of Gallery 25 from 25 Church Street to the New Milford train station at 11 Railroad Street. and to gain guidance from the town council regarding this move. We ask for the blessing of the town council and ask you to help the Art Commission understand the town's role and processes for establishing an agreement for usage and the town's role in rehabbing the railroad station, that it be used specifically and only for a community visual arts gallery cultural center, sponsored by New Milford Commission on the Arts and run by a community of regional visual artists under the name New Milford Arts Depot. Currently, Gallery 25 is the community visual arts gallery overseen by New Milford Commission on the Arts. On May 21, 2016, the Danbury News-Times ran an article stating the gallery will move to the railroad station to make way for relocation of the probate court into the space at 25 Church Street. The last 7 months have been confusing for everyone active with Gallery 25, for groups using the railroad station, and for the public. As chairwoman of the town's Art Commission and currently designated person overseeing the gallery, I am stuck in the middle trying to understand and compromise the conflicts surrounding this move. The Art Commission wants to have some clarity and direction and wants to have the mayor's and the town council's support. Gallery 25 has received generous accolades over its 3 years as a visual arts venue for the town of New Milford, in addition to the obvious, exhibiting beautiful works of art created by local artists and artisans. Gallery 25 has hosted numerous fine art-related programs and guest exhibitions. It has twice hosted a town-wide art walk under the sponsorship of New Milford Commission on the Arts. The event included many volunteers and businesses and attracted hundreds of visitors. It has hosted presentations by authors, twice including Art Commission member and New Milford's Poet Laureate, Dr. James Springour. It has organized and hosted 2 open calls and shows for visual artists in the area. It has hosted specialty classes in several disciplines within the visual fine arts realm. It has offered short-term studio space free for artists needing day space to work in exchange for keeping the door open. In 2015, the gallery became the town's tourism center, blending beautifully an opportunity for welcoming visitors to our town, answering questions, and providing literature about local offerings. The New Milford Arts Depot wishes to continue as a tourism center and to receive the stipend from the town, which we need to update tourism signage, potential advertising, and, as appropriate, to pay a designated tourism person who keeps us all up on local offerings outside the arts, such as the Vietnam Memorial Wall, theater offerings, church programs, special events and menus at local restaurants, and the history of New Milford, any and all of which may be of interest to visiting tourists. As a tourism center, we have welcomed people from away, including several European countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Alaska, and many other states. All of these visitors praised our town for having the foresight to blend tourism with a local art gallery, art being a natural vehicle for conversation. This fall, 2016, Gallery 25 was invited to be the featured business at the Western Connecticut Arts Alliance's annual business breakfast, an invitation honor we agreed mutually to decline when we learned of the gallery's impending move and name change. The lack of communication about Gallery 25's move has generated numerous rumors, negativity, and comments about the gallery, and discord with organizations and individuals. The Art Commission's December 2016 meeting minutes has an entry that reads, Gallery 25, quote, since it appears that the probate court will not be moving to 25 Church Street, the Commission should send a letter to the mayor respectfully requesting that the gallery remain at Church Street until the railroad station is refurbished and ready for the transition, passed unanimously. Until tonight, and for the most part, discussion about the gallery's move has not been public. The original plan to move the gallery to make way for the probate court had a September move date, but the only people who knew this was Mayor Grombeck, Economic Development Director Kevin Bielmeyer, me, and some of the gallery participants. I do believe there were a few more people than that, and there was a newspaper article attached about some of that. I'm here tonight to put our move on the record and to ask your support. In a meeting this afternoon with Economic Development Director Kevin Bielmeyer and Town Planner Kathy Castagnetta and me, I believe a reasonable and viable plan for this move was put into place. The gallery generated a list of items potentially needed to update the railroad station for a gallery. On our list, we asked the mayor to make a public statement to the town council that puts the gallery's move and agreement on the record and confirms usage of the railroad station. Okay, thank you very much.
Michael John Cavallaro.
Good evening. It's 4.5 minutes. Michael John Cavallero. For the record, I'm the Vice Chairman of the Conservation Commission. However, I am not here to speak for the Conservation Commission this evening. I'm here to speak as a private citizen. I want the public to know, I want the mayor and the council to know that the mayor's office and the town planner, 181 Indian Trail Road, it's in the right, thank you. The mayor and through the town planner has asked for an opinion from the Conservation Commission that is forthcoming. To fulfill the law, we had a meeting on last Wednesday night. We reached accord. The letter has been drafted, but in order for us to legally put it forward, we have to have a meeting. So the chairman is intending on calling a meeting for this coming Wednesday night, special meeting, to approve the letter, and I hope to have it, sir, on your desk. And, pardon me? Regarding Amoresco. Okay. So that's what I'm here, so I'm taking one hat off, if you will, and now I'm speaking privately, not for the commission. I have deep concerns about this project. First of all, I want to say that I believe in alternative energy. I'm a conservationist. I believe in the future of alternative energies. What I don't believe in is people overriding normal regulatory process. And this bothers me about this particular application. The applicant, Amoresco, has come forth and asked for basically a tax abatement. The problem with this that I have is that what they're doing is they're asking for a tax abatement, and they don't want to go through the process of the normal regulatory procedures. For example, when the Conservation Commission asked for a plan, there is no plan. There's no maps, there's no surveys, the things that are normally required by all land use commissions to look into the viability of such a project. No survey maps, none of that. So on the one hand, so what they want to do instead is do an end run around the town regulations by going to the Siting Council, which they have a right to do. And the Siting Council has a right to that as well. However, the Siting Council also has the ability to require the town, or to ask of the applicant, that the regular regulations of the town be listened to and heard. No one has asked for that yet. Politely and respectively, I suggest to you that this commission and you, Mr. Mayor, have the ability to say to the Siting Council, would you please allow our regular process to do its job and to do its regular process. The next thing that bothers me is that anything like this, in terms of a tax abatement, should benefit from the examination of a cost-benefit issue to the town. What are the costs to the town in regard to the tax abatement, and what is the benefit to the town from the tax abatement? So far, all I've seen is that the sole benefit is to the applicant, as far as I can discover. There's also another issue with that, and that is there's not only cost-benefit analysis that should be examined, but also risk and reward issues. What are the risks to the town, and what are the rewards to the town if the town decides to go ahead with this? The plan also is very, very, because of the end run, is very disturbing to me personally, because there's no formal application to look at. Here they are asking us for a favor of tax abatement, but then asking to suspend the normal rules. We don't do that for anybody. We require all developers and all things to follow the rules. So again, I would suggest that you could speak to the Siting Council about that. Asking us for a favor on the one hand and avoiding the rules is like a slap in the face, as far as I'm concerned as a taxpayer. There's also historic issues. I am one of the town historians. I've written 2 history books on this town. I'm concerned about the stone walls, the stone bounds, the archaeological assets, and all of this stuff being completely obliterated with no maps of it, and nothing there to show us what. Thank you. I will then turn to my last issue of importance, and that is that I read the town planner's suggestions on page 3, which I don't have time to expound upon, but it's a matter of public record. She has a long, long list of suggestions, and there are bonding issues. I suggest that all of these things in regard to bonding issues should be taken care of, because the town should require bonding on issues that demand responsible follow-up actions and inspections as they are normally and reasonably required by all other applicants to protect the town of New Milford protect us environmentally, financially, and into the future. We don't want to end up with another brass factory when it comes time to take this place down. Those are my personal concerns. Thank you for listening. And you will be getting formally a letter from the Conservation Commission before the week is out, I assure you. I thank you all for your time. I have an appointment at the hospital early in the morning, so I'm leaving. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Weller.
Hello, my name is Frank Weller. I'm currently residing at 214 Candlewood Mountain Road. And before that, in a former life, I was at 64 Candlewood Lake Road North. I want to talk to you about the property. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your service. Almost 20 years ago, I stood before you and asked for the funds to start the Film Commission. And that's been rewarding for a lot of people. And personally, I've been a film scout, location scout, for almost that amount of time. And during that time, I've had the rare honor of seeing this town develop and grow, but from a very interesting point of view. I've been able to catalog and photograph and shepherd projects to this town based on its beauty and based on its wildlife commitment. And you probably are all aware that it's really developing very quickly. Over those 20 years, I've seen a lot of growth, and this particular project with the solar panels is something that I don't think is what we would call the highest and best use in real estate terms of that property. It's a fairly primitive project. My sister has a company called Inertia, and they won an inventor competition with 4,500 applicants. It was sponsored by the government and the post office and Lexus automobiles and Time Warner. The point is that they won that contest, and it was a solar application. So I've been involved, and I've seen some very high-tech solar applications. And this really, as much as I'm in favor of using the sun, this is not the best place for this. It's really the kind of thing that can be done in other places. In this town, I could name 3 or 4 places right off the top of my head that would be better suited. So I would just caution, from my point of view of seeing the town grow, that I think we could find a better place for this particular project. Again, having photographed the property and seen what a beautiful, I've ridden on horseback over this property. I don't think you're doing yourselves proud by putting this kind of project there. And I hope you all decide that and especially if you get a chance to look at the property itself, get a chance to see, what the relative values are. So thank you very much for your consideration, and thank you for your service again.
Thank you, Frank. Lisa Ostrov.
Hi, my name is Lisa Ostrov, and me and my family live at 175 Candlewood Mountain Road. We have some very real concerns about a slew of potential negative elements arriving from this project. The reason we came to New Milford 14 years ago, and in particular Candlewood Mountain Road, was because of the unique and special environment of the area and its beautiful setting. It seems completely inappropriate for a large development of this kind to want to destroy the beauty and the serenity of our home and cause major problems. There's no way to know the impact of this project on the land, with erosion, on the trees, cutting them down, on the view, on the wildlife, on the wetlands, on the stone walls, on the traffic, or on the planes and pilots flying above in the glare. We live here for all the beauty they create. We can't imagine how exaggerated these issues may become if the buffer of all those trees is removed. It's an experimental risk, and it's just not fair that we have to carry the burden of that risk. The erosion cannot be measured. The destruction of wetlands and stone walls will not go unnoticed. The thousands of trucks barreling through our road will destroy the serenity we love. The protective fences to secure their solar panels, built behind our homes, perhaps with barbed wire on top, are an abomination. Making a commercial entrance connected to Candlewood Mountain Road will forever change the community.
Utility poles running throughout are not what we want our view to be of. And transformers in our backyard is a much bigger health issue. Medical studies continue to this day to link transformers to several forms of cancer. They have not been proven yet. They continue to study them. And where is their plan? They want a tax abatement and other perks, but no comprehensive plan. So in closure, I do wish I had my commercial real estate license, because I would take Commercial Service Realty and their client Amoresco and show them 80 acres somewhere. Their solar power plant plans, or lack of a plan, would have less impact on a most cherished spot. There's so many remote places to do this without destroying so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Don Turner?
Evening, my voice holds out. I'm one of several people I've been running the railroad station every year for 6 years.
So could you give us your name? Your name and address.
Donald W. Turner, 21 Vista Drive, New Milford. I'm one of the local artist craft groups. I have a letter here, 2 letters I'd like to leave with you for the town council. Given the time limit and my voice disappearing, I'm going to skip through this quickly, but we question whether the mayor has the authority to go forward with the movement of Gallery 25 into the railroad station. The railroad station was taken over by the town in 1984 with the express purpose of being available for community use. And we feel that the Gallery 25, being a private retail operation, does not fit in with community use. It also will displace any number of organizations, ours included, but a number of others as well. So tonight I brought a letter I had intended to read, but given the time limit and my voice, I'm going to just leave this here for the council members to read at their convenience. And I'm also going to drop off here a freedom of information request. We're asking that the mayor provide us with any and all documentation to support his view that he has the authority to make this decision unilaterally. So here is the freedom of information request I'd like to put on record. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gonder, Tom? Tom Gonder or Gordon? Okay.
Hello, my name is John Gordon. I'm here at the request of the owner of Candlelight Farms Airport, Terrence McClinch, or Terry, as he likes to go by. First, before going to anything else, he wanted me to thank the council members here for donating their valuable time to contribute to the New Milford and our community. And regardless of the way things go, even if we don't agree with it, we know you're doing what you think is best, so we don't want this to turn into an adversarial type of a conversation. But I'm here to voice grave concern regarding the proposed 80-acre solar project on Candlewood Mountain in New Milford, for the following reasons. While we think solar is a worthy endeavor, we feel that the developers here are pushing the council to rule on the matter now without perhaps taking time to consider all the ramifications and how they would affect your constituents. For clarity's sake, and I may be wrong about this, but our understanding is that this site is owned by a bank right now and optioned by a for-profit developer who has entered into a contingent lease with a power company to provide a certain amount of power. Is that correct? Is that in the ballpark?
You can't engage.
Okay, then I'll keep going.
Sure.
And basically, that this for-profit endeavor is looking to the town council for tax breaks that basically come out of the pockets of the rest of the taxpayers in New Milford. We understand there's a great deal of federal and state pressure on towns like New Milford to work towards cleaner energy, and the stakes may even be higher given how things went with the proposed Panda site on the Century Brass Mill owned by the town. We also understand that the timeline, that there are pressures that the developer is receiving to get this done by a certain date, which maybe is why everybody's pushing to go forward, but I think we all need to take a breath. I think rushing, something's going to get missed. Much more study is warranted, and the following items I think the town council must have a better understanding on the following items before they can even consider doing a tax break. Number one, the effect of the tree removal on almost pristine set of land, the fact that historical walls will be destroyed, erosion, glare. I understand that panels reflect a large amount of light, particularly during the mornings and evenings when the sun is low in the sky. What effect will that have on the residents or on the environment or some of the other long-time users of the area? Including, I think, including the airport, which has been a part of our community for 60 years, paying taxes, and there have been preliminary studies done that a solar array in that area would cause a distracting glare for some of the people that use the airport. The habitats. I know that in nearby land there have been studies showing that the slimy salamander, which is an endangered species, lives in these woods. I know for a fact that the golden eagles have been spotted on Candlewood Mountain as well as bald eagles. What sort of studies have been done? How can you propose to give them a tax break before we really have an understanding of these matters? Not to mention the unforeseen health effects on the residents in the area. If not Candlewood Mountain, where? I don't pretend to understand the nuances of these things, but perhaps there's a way to make the former Century Brass Mill site work in lieu of the pristine Candlewood Mountain, or maybe one of the closed garbage areas that basically don't have a lot of people living around it, so health issues are not a matter to be concerned about, or a pristine countryside. There are just a lot of other issues that need to be addressed, I think, before you guys can consider giving a tax break. So to end up, I just want to thank you for your time, and we hope that you'll proceed cautiously. As you can see, there are a lot of people who are concerned about this project, your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Dobson, please.
Good evening, members of the Town Council. Phil Dobson, 165 Candlewood Mountain Road. I think solar panels are a great idea. I mean, who doesn't want to improve our environment? We see them all over the place. Just came back from Vermont. You see them virtually fields after fields of them. The only problem with this particular project is that it's the location of the solar panels. If you want to put solar panels up, you get a field, a vacant field. Whereas the gentleman just alluded to, put them on top of the garbage dump field out there. Why do you want to put them on top of a hill and destroy, basically clear cut 60 acres of trees? Not only are you clear cutting 60 acres of trees, you're removing 60 acres of tree stumps. Then you're going to level it off, and you're going to tell me, well, this is going to be a perfect spot for it. Well, why didn't we go down this field over here or this field over here? Why do we want to destroy 60 acres of pristine property? Our job as parents, basically protect our environment for our children and our grandchildren. I think when you look up, when you have kids, our kids and our grandchildren walk the mountains, be able to walk through the mountains and enjoy it, they don't want to see a solar panel up on top of a mountain when they could have easily been a variety of other different places. Furthermore, I think this project just stinks of greed. You have a bank here that owns a property, was foreclosed on, they're trying to bail their butts out of it. Hey, this sounds like a great idea, we'll put it up there and we'll get some money out of this deal. Tax abatement, why don't you give if they're talking about a tax abatement, you should give a tax abatement to virtually every business that starts in New Milford, from a landscaping business on up, saying, hey, listen, give me a tax break so I can get my business started. I mean, the whole thing just, to me, is just reeks of greed, and the overall environment is, yes, I love solar panels, but this is not the place for it. It should be put in a more appropriate place. Century Brass. I don't care where you put it. Look into the vacant field where it will certainly be there and be basically acceptable for the entire general public. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your consideration of this matter.
Devin Dobson.
Town Council, my name's Devin Dobson. You can probably guess my stance on this. That's my father. However, I'm up here as someone from the millennial generation, someone who supports, like most of us, renewable energy, harnessing the sun's power to create electricity. And there are obviously a lot of benefits to that. But I'm also someone who supports the preservation of the natural beauty and wildlife that's here in this great town of New Milford. For that reason, I strongly ask that you reconsider this project, as simply put, the cons far outweigh any of the benefits. My brothers and I were extremely lucky to grow up on Candlewood Mountain Road. We were lucky enough to grow up in those woods and play in them almost every day. There are 100-year-old trees, unbelievable stone walls and rock formations. There's hiking trails, horseback riding trails, cross-country skiing trails in the wintertime, snowshoeing trails, what have you. So I just simply ask that before you go forward and make any irreversible decisions, strap on your own hiking boots, go on up there. You can borrow my snowshoes this time of year, just stop by the house, and just go see the woods for yourself and really take in the beauty and what this project would be ultimately ruining. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Devin. Joseph De Gregorio.
Hey, Town Council. Joseph D. Gregorio, 18 Cobbler Lane. I am a member of the Board of Finance for the town, but I'm not here tonight to speak for the board at all. And I very well may be one of the few people here who thinks the solar project's a good idea. I definitely hear and understand many of the concerns that the residents of the town that have come up and brought forth. And I think a lot of those really should be definitely investigated and addressed, and I think many of them will be if and when the project does go to the siting council, and input into those sorts of things, you know, like the slimy salamander and visibility to aircrafts and those sorts of things will most definitely be addressed, and you know, and should be. And if the project turns out to be not environmentally feasible, then it shouldn't be allowed to go forward. But I also think that the tax revenue that could be generated could definitely be useful to the town. And although there is a pilot, which is lesser payment in the beginning, tapering to a higher payment in the end, those higher payments after, especially year 11, when the revenues jump up to $140,000 and above, I think could be very useful to the town. And it would be we'd be hard pressed to find that sort of revenue from land like that without, you know, clear cutting it and putting up many more houses, which you know, which the town doesn't necessarily need. What we need is a little bit more, in my personal opinion, you know, industrial and business revenues to help kind of bolster the tax base to keep property taxes a little bit lower. But that's my 2 cents, and I thank you for listening to me, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Joseph. Eugene Albert.
Good evening, Town Council. My name's Eugene Albert. I live at 19 Candlewood Vista. I've been on Candlewood Vista since 2004, and driving up Candlewood Mountain each and every day, it has been a pure joy to look at those property on Candlewood Mountain. It's clear, it's pristine. I remember a project being proposed back in 2010 where an environmental survey was done, and they talked about that project in the 2010 survey about the Jefferson salamander, the marbled salamander, the four-toed salamander, the gray tree frog, spring peepers, and the northern leopard frog. They represented new town records for New Milford. Now we're talking about clear-cutting this property. From what I'm being told, there's no buffers for this property. Why would we consider clear-cutting the property and putting up something that we're concerned about erosion for all the community, What's the water management plan from putting up 67,000 solar panels? How is the water flow going to be handled? Is there going to be flooding on people's properties? I'm on the downhill side of that. So now how is all the rainwater going to be handled? Currently, in its natural state, you have the trees absorbing it and it's being handled. But when we clear cut it, it's going to be a whole different thing. We talk about increased revenues. Everyone's concerned about decline of property values, which would then decrease property taxes. We're all pro-solar. Many of the homes in the neighborhood have solar panels on their roofs. Okay? There's a proper place to put the solar panels. I've heard time and time again, Century Brass, excellent place to put them. But as a resident of Candlewood Mountain, I do not support this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lacey, help me out here. Lacey?
Hello, it's Lacey Ortolu.
Okay.
I'm a commission member, Commission of the Arts, and I'm also the event director of the Milford Art Walk. And I'm here as a member of the community just to voice my opinion and support to Gallery 25 as they have done in my endeavors in the past. It's 57 Bel Air of New Milford. Last August in 2016, I directed an event, the New Milford Art Walk, which brought together 23 downtown businesses, 25 regional artists, and nearly 300 community members to our downtown. And I could not have done this without Gallery 25's volunteer team, which is their members, as well as the Commission of the Arts. I just wanted to voice my opinion on how important they are to our community. And thank you for your time.
Peter Mullen.
Good evening. Peter Mullen, 64 Old Ridge Road. And I am not going to speak about solar panels, just so if you want a little change of pace. One thing on the items on the agenda concerns John Pettibone School, and many of the buildings built long before and long after Pettibone was built have asbestos. This building has it. Most of the buildings circling the town green have it. And our schools, except for the new high school, have had it, unless they got it taken out when the Sarah Noble was done. But those buildings, for their entire existence, had maintenance and repairs done to them, constantly, almost from day one. Carpets were cleaned, walls were repaired, painted. Schools, I mean, come on. I raised 3 kids in my house. The amount of repairs I had to do was extensive. Hundreds of kids in a school, repairs are constantly going on. So to bring up this issue now and of this location has to raise some questions. Why now? Why this location? That all of a sudden we're concerned about asbestos during a repair, during cleaning of a building. I don't know what the motives are for it, but they have to be called into question. I don't know if there's some other plan going on. I don't know if somebody wants to sell that building. But I, for one, think it should be a community center. I think it'll be a phenomenal addition to this town. And it's just a very positive thing. Thank you. Have a good night. I'm going to go home watching football.
Amanda Loda.
Hi, I'm actually Amanda Locke, and I live at 143 Candlewood Mountain Road. And I'm here, apparently unlike most of my neighbors, to support the Amoresco Solar Project. I think that obviously there are aesthetic and environmental concerns that should be addressed in the process of developing the site, but I think it's pretty important to remember that supporting renewables is important for the future of everybody on the planet and reduces fossil fuel carbon being burned, and the more that we can encourage that, the better I think it is for everybody in New Milford and across the country and across the world. And I think that it's important to support these projects. I get that nobody wants these things in their backyard. That's a big problem with a lot of renewable energy, NIMBYism. But the fact of the matter is that it's a good site. My understanding is that there will be a buffer so that you won't see it from the road. And yes, it is 80 acres of forest land, but I think that the energy that can be generated offsets that loss. So thank you for your time.
Nancy, help me out here. Okay, Nancy. Thank you.
195 Candlewood Mountain. Okay. I have everything written. Hello, everybody. Amidst the comings and goings of many issues in the town, I believe it's important to recognize one pillar in our community. A gentleman, a philanthropist, historian, a gracious and generous man, Mr. Charles Barlow. And I'd like to thank all of you who attended Charlie's funeral, before, after, when he was alive, visited with him. And he loved this town. He loved New Milford and loved his country. And I'd like to recognize him for the few things he did for our community, because all of these people should be recognized like we did today, whether it be his contributions or his time advising different entities. The New Milford Historical Society, the VNA and Hospice, the Children's Center, the Congregational Church, the Pettibone Scholarship, Waterwitch, New Milford Ambulance, Hunt Hill Farm, the Hospital Foundation, Literacy Volunteers, Mary All Center for the Arts, and the Boardman Bridge Fund. Charlie was a wonderful and intelligent person. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we all focused and supported the great things we love about our town and the success of those things? And now for my opposition and support for the massive solar plan. I am opposed to putting a massive solar project, approximately the size of 63 football fields, on the 80 acres of farmlands and woodlands which will be destroyed on Candlewood Mountain. I'm opposed to devastating the natural habitat for wildlife above ground and underground, some of which are protected and endangered. I'm opposed to clear-cutting 60 acres of trees, which causes water and soil erosion, a problem along the property surrounding this massive project. I'm opposed to anyone thinking this massive project is going on fallow land. It is far from that. I hope all of you have visited the property to see its beauty. It's private land, I understand, doesn't have an owner really, that really cares about it, and it's going to be destroyed. This land brings so much joy and contentment to people who walk, ride, or visit. I oppose a massive project that may ruin the established and favored business which I run at Candlelight Farms. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. The visitors come here because they love the outdoors, the mountains, biking, hiking, riding. They say it's so much like Vermont without the drive. We focus on agritourism with organic gardens, fresh farm food, and authentic farm experience. Nature's huge for the couples who come for this reason. I'm concerned that with the failure of my business, will also hurt many businesses in town. We attract thousands of guests annually, and they spend lots of money. They support our restaurants, the other B&B, jewelry stores, salons, package stores, and grocery stores. I'm opposed to the quote, "This is a business deal and an economic opportunity." I think we need to measure and weigh this opportunity and hope that the deal is the real deal, the good people, and the natural beauty of our town. But I support alternative clean energy. It needs to be placed sensibly and sensitively without destroying farmlands, woodlands, and wildlife. I support transparency. Last month at an informational hearing, I asked if we could fly balloons along Candlewood and the perimeter of the massive project to see if parts of this project could be seen. I was told that rather than balloons, a rendering would be done. That was a month ago. As we visited and spoke with neighbors this weekend, some who were only here on weekends, I was alarmed at how many residents know nothing of this massive project in their backyards. They need to know that many affect their property values. We were told at the informational hearing that flyers would go out. If they did, no one seemed to have one. I support our local paper for putting for advertising this meeting yesterday. I support Northeast Organic Farming Association and other farm bureaus. I wasn't able to attend the meeting of the Farmland Preservation, but I would like to talk to them because we do have maps that I can support for them, give them. And I support you, the leaders of our town, in knowing that we are here to talk about taxes, that you know there are larger issues: businesses, property values, natural resources, and the reasons that people want to live and vacation here. I trust you will work together to make the right decisions for our town and its vitality. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Barnes.
Michael Barnes, 17 Sullivan Farm. Dr. Mullen mentioned Pettibone School and didn't understand what was going on. The difference is schools are under an asbestos management plan that is under control. The difference is this is now a construction project with no hazardous material plan. Federal and state law requires certain precautions to be taken before starting construction work on a building that contains toxic and hazardous substances. Nobody should have been doing construction in John Pettibone School prior to an assessment. That includes youth agency kids cleaning up God knows what last summer. Federal safety and health regulations for construction, 29 CFR 1926.1101, lays out the requirements for working on a building containing asbestos. The work in Pettibone falls under the less stringent Class 3 and Class 4 work under the regulation, but still requires a licensed asbestos consultant to conduct an initial exposure assessment. Paragraph F2I of the regulation states, quote, each employer who has a workplace or work operation covered by this standard shall ensure that a competent person conducts an exposure assessment immediately before or at the initiation of the operation to ascertain expected exposures during that operation or workplace. The assessment must be completed in time to comply with requirements that are triggered by exposure data or the lack of a negative exposure assessment, and to provide information necessary to assure that all control systems planned are appropriate for that operation and will work properly. There are also requirements for how Class 3 and Class 4 work is done once it commences, such as wet drilling, wet sanding, wet vacuuming, personnel filter masks, and special training. Since the mayor had not conducted the legally required assessment and presented no plan of work to deal with hazardous materials, I decided to take action to make sure those working in the building were safe. Once I confirmed the presence of asbestos in the JPS building, I made a complaint to the State Health Department and notified this body. That complaint has forced the mayor to follow the law after the fact. While I don't expect the state to find a significant exposure hazard on the work already done, especially after holes were filled and walls painted between the time I called and the state came to inspect, it is vitally important that regulations be followed when working in this type of environment to ensure future worker safety. I have no idea what the mayor's talking about as far as an OSHA complaint, because you have to be an employee to complain to OSHA. A certain member of this body immediately took to social media to attempt to portray my complaint as improper if the asbestos in JPS is not friable. That member only showed how ignorant he is of the law, as any construction work to be done to a building with bonded asbestos also falls under the regulation. Unfortunately, the mayor does not appear to be interested in following state or federal law, or even our own charter for that matter, when it comes to this project. He's not interested in what anyone else in town thinks of what he is doing with millions of dollars worth of town property and what will be millions of dollars worth of town funds, or regulations protecting the safety of town workers. He seems only interested in finding the most expedient path to fulfill a political agenda. Thank you.
Help me out here. Alexia?
Good evening. I'm Lexia Alves. My address is 4 Gibbs Hill Lane. My family and I have been New Milford residents since 2005. Just like many of you, as residents of New Milford, we want what's best for our town to be done proficiently and beneficially. So with that being said, it comes to no surprise that I support generating something that will benefit the town as a whole. The Candlewood Solar Project that has been presented to many of us is a project that not only will benefit the residents of New Milford, Connecticut, but a project that will benefit our environment while giving us something in return. The Candlewood Solar Project is a chemical-free CHAS that would produce enough energy to power over 2,400 homes in just 1 year using panels that absorb light with little to no glare and produce the energy without any audible noise, moving parts, and the promise of reclaimed land at the end of the project. The system installation would create more than 100 jobs, and on top of that would generate extra income. Just like many of you, I would love to take part in benefiting our community, and it is evident that this project would be excellent for the town of New Milford while preserving the environment around us. So for that reason, I ask for your support to vote in favor of the project as presented to you. Our town is a great place, and doing things to allow it to grow will benefit all of us in return. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak tonight.
Alexia Alves.
Getting late.
There's nothing up here anymore. Thank you. Sorry about that. Carl Dunham.
Good evening, members of the Town Council, Mayor. I'm here obviously to speak about the solar project. What's before you now is a consideration for favorable tax treatment, and I don't think it's appropriate at all. First, what's being requested is totally novel to this town. No one has ever requested a 20-year tax abatement or a portion thereof. I've looked at the agreement, and not only are you talking about 20 years, but you're talking about successive 5-year renewals. I mean, wouldn't it be nice for anybody to have a business and be sure of what the tax is going to be for the next 20, 30, 40 years? It makes no sense. You're not being fair to the existing people that have businesses here, that have been paying taxes. They would like that assurance as well. So I don't think it's a fair thing to do to everybody else. Now, I know this is something that there's new regulations on, and that's something that encourages this. However, it's not necessary. You know, the next question is how hard is it for them to make money without this? I just want to point out to you, under the agreements with Amoresco, which is on record with the Siting Council, Amoresco is paying the people who own the property $450,000 a year. Now, if you look at it carefully, that bill for taxes is not the burden of Amoresco, because their payment is net of taxes. So the tax abatement that you're granting is in favor of the people that own the property. So tell me that somebody who's making that kind of money can't pay a fair amount of taxes? It's just bizarre to me. So in addition to being something that's never been done before, it isn't even fair. The pilot proposal that they're suggesting to you is tacitly putting it such that the town is in favor of it. You know, there's language in there that says that you're supposed to support them. That's nuts. You're committing the townspeople to a project that they haven't even been able to vet. They haven't been able to see. They have no information. They've bypassed the normal channels. That piece of property is subject to a lot of information. I know it because I owned it. I own 600 acres around it. There was a project that was supposed to go on, which it's currently zoned for. That project, if it went forward, would pay far, far more taxes than this will ever pay. And not only that, it'll provide all sorts of benefits. Yet they're trying to bypass that. They're bypassing wetlands, they're bypassing zoning, and they say, oh, this is all before the Siting Council. What's everybody supposed to do? Go up to Hartford? If this is going to be supported by the town, it really should be by a town referendum. Not by this council giving tacit support via a pilot project. Pilot is essentially for properties that would normally not pay taxes. Canterbury, whatever things are basically tax exempt. But what they do is they come up with a tax payment, a payment in lieu of taxes, which is agreed upon. This is new. This is not what this is for. The other thing that is, this project is not taking into consideration some of the harm. It's very interesting. Although there is a kind of a mandate at the state level to encourage alternative energy, there's also some mandates at the state level to encourage farm preservation and also natural resource preservation. And as a matter of fact, these are all coming into a collision fashion, because I'm going to attend a meeting tomorrow in Hartford talking about considerations that should be considered when you get down to siting solar. It's been commented by the chairman or the commissioner of agriculture currently that the biggest plague for farmland, great, that'll do it. The biggest plague to farmland is these solar panels. They're consuming and being a harsh thing on the amount of farmland we have. But then the other thing of it is if in fact these panels are going to be put on farmland or someplace else, it really should inure to the benefit of the properties there. So that there may be farmers that need to protect their farm by generating money, but this money is not being generated by them. This is going off to some other place. So there's an awful lot to consider insofar as citing these things when you look at all the considerations. So I would urge you to reject this pilot agreement. I think it's one-sided, and I don't think it's appropriate. Thank you.
I reside at 10 Fox Ridge Drive. My name is Jeff Ginty, and I'm the president of Durkins Incorporated. And we work quite a bit at Candlelight Farms, providing tenting for weddings and events. I'm concerned that this industrial-scaled solar development will ultimately be an eyesore and deter couples from hosting their event at this venue. It also seems that the development process will destroy peaceful farmlands, rolling hills, picturesque views, farmlands, roaming wildlife, which is all the attraction to Candlelight. In fact, there is no other place like Candlelight Farms. It's one of a kind and one of my biggest accounts, along with a dozen other businesses that work up there on a weekly basis. I feel this project would financially impact our businesses, employees, families, all due to lost opportunities simply because the farm just wouldn't be a farm anymore. I'm an advocate of solar power, but I believe this is the wrong location. This proposition would hurt more people than you think. So please take my thoughts into your consideration. Thank you for your time.
All right, I need some help here. It looks like the last name is Martin. Yep, Martin. All right, thank you.
My name is Mario Martin, small business owner in New Milford, Connecticut. I live on 30 Megany Lane. I'm strong for solar power. I mean, our flag is green. We want green energy, we want this and that. Today, we're presenting you with, this solar panel issue. Tomorrow, the bank may sell this to Toll Brothers, who's going to produce 100 homes. Now, I understand all the respect that my neighbors and everything have on Candlewood Mountain, but for 6 months, we may have this project that's well hidden above the mountain, so nobody's going to see it. The farm will not be affected with the views of this or anything. But we could have that, or we could have, 4 years of trucks going up and down, housing, houses up in there and this and that. They've talked about this project for many years with the houses and all that. That died. This came up. This could die tomorrow, but I'd rather see solar panel energy efficient because our power companies are unregulated now. And if you notice, Connecticut's got the highest electric rate in all the states around here. We just keep going up and up and up. I says we got to have new ways to produce more energy to try to keep our rates down because they keep buying power from everywhere else. This could be help. I mean, it's something. I'd rather see this than see 100 homes. I mean, I like walking the road just like all my neighbors do, but I think for 6 months, whatever little construction can be involved with that would be better than 4 or 5 years of new houses. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Winter.
Good evening, Jeff Winter at 22 Morey Road. I'm here to talk about a few things tonight. And mostly what I want to talk about is the aspect of no, but also the aspect of misinformation to get people to know. When we're talking about solar energy, it's interesting how everyone says, well, I want solar energy, but not in my backyard. Now, I think that when the town planner put out her page, or her paper that was attached to the minutes of the last meeting, it made a lot of sense to go through a number of these steps so that the town does follow all the needed rules and regulations. If it meets it, then it's a good project for the town. But I also understand the environmental needs, et cetera, et cetera. Those all have to be looked at and discussed. What I think is important for a lot of people to know and understand is that this project, just like every other project, is, if it's going to move forward, is the obligation of the mayor, is the obligation of the town council, is the obligation of the Economic Development Commission to bring these things forward. So it's not that this, and again, no one has endorsed this program, no one has endorsed this project, but it's the obligation to do so. Failure to do so would be a disservice to the voters and the taxpayers of this town. For instance, and we'll get to a little misinformation. When you hear from the owner of the airport that these panels will cause problems for pilots, as far as I know, people have been flying into the sun for years, as long as there have been airplanes. And if you think that this is unusual, it's not. Some of the major airports in this country have large solar panel fields, not only surrounding them, but also on top of their buildings. So if you think commercial aviation is worried about glare in the pilot's eyes, they got a lot more to lose than Candlelight Farms. And also, if it's such a big deal for the owner, where the heck is he? He's not a stakeholder. He doesn't even live in the county. So let's get real. The other part of misinformation is when we talk about the buildings in question in town, and especially John Pettibone School. Asbestos has been known for years. That's nothing new. The nonsense surrounding whether or not to move city departments to Pettibone School has received some of the most bizarre objections I've ever heard. This council heard someone a few weeks ago say that by combining social services in the same area with youth agency and park and rec and what have you, that the social services brings in potential pedophiles. If you remember that, it's actually in your minutes. And that's not true at all. And also, that's not the experience of other towns. Go to Southbury. I work in Southbury. I took notice today as I drove by. In one building, they have park and rec, social services, and senior services. If there were criminal elements running around, wouldn't they want to rip off senior citizens? As far as I know, Southbury is not burning down because senior citizens are getting ripped off in the senior center. So that's just nonsense. There have also been arguments against the moving services out of the greater downtown area and bringing them to Pettibone, as though that would hurt the environment here in downtown. The whole point of economic development is to bring people in who are going to be permanent job fixtures in the area. Yep, and I would ask that I get the 3-minute extension at the end if possible. If the hospital had built on the Lillis site years ago, we would have an extensive revenue stream for downtown businesses. That never happened. People said the senior center and people that visit social services in the Lillis building, et cetera, that these are customers of the downtown businesses. The fact is that's not true. It's been studied by the Economic Development Commission. Those of us who've been on that committee knows that. Those are all part of a transactional environment. They come in for one thing and they get out. These people do not come in and feed downtown businesses. And I'll wait till later to address the rest of it. Thank you, Walter.
David Kellogg.
David Kellogg from 7 Lookout Ridge Road, which is just off Candlewood Mountain Road. At the risk of being redundant on all of the things that you've heard about for and against the solar project, I am absolutely against it. I live right off Candlewood Mountain Road, as I said. We moved there because of the setting. The charm of living there and the untouched nature, the surroundings of the area. Not against solar power. I think it's a great thing. Might be the future of our green power. But like anything else, when you put something and replace something, or put something in that's moving forward, the good has to outweigh the bad. And in this particular case, the bad being the location. The amount of area that the 80 acres of solar panels consumes becomes an environmental disaster as far as I'm concerned for a local bucolic community that's used to the environment that we have there. Whatever is being proposed as part of an environmental solution, being green power in this particular case, is more than offset by the bigger blight to the topography of the mountaintop. I find it hard to believe when I hear that there'll be a buffer, that you won't see it, that you won't know it's there. I literally walk with my dog on that area every single day, and the thought of that being clear cut with that much is just, I don't think moving forward in this particular case. So the good has not outweighed the bad. Thanks.
Greg Mullen.
Hi, Greg Mullen, 39 Meadowood Drive. I'm glad somebody brought up Charlie Barlow. I consider him a dear friend and probably one of the people that I would consider an extraordinary gentleman. He was a member of a networking group that I was in, Greater New Milford Business Alliance. I enjoyed watching the videotape where he talked about going to school at East Street. He's got a lot of history here. I have lived in this community since 1971. I have 2 kids, 7 and 10 years old. They both went to Pettibone. I have been in business for 20 years, most of which was downtown, so I'm well aware of the issues facing small businesses, and the downtown is still very important to me. I was a member of the Downtown Business Alliance. I'm currently a member of the Chamber, the Greater New Milford Business Association, a networking group, and recently the RTC. So I actively use the railroad station on a regular basis, as well as a lot of people that I know. I support the solar project as it will not be visible as far as I have seen. I live with the eyesore that is ONG gravel mine. I drive that road. I see that. I don't see anybody doing anything about that. I can deal with the solar farm in my neighborhood. I do live near the project. To me, it seems like a good use for this property rather than single-family homes or condos that would cost us all more as taxpayers to support. And on some level, I think it may even protect the property from other uses that could be negative. I think Amoresco, and its developers actually have been before this council for, I think, more than a year already. So this is nothing new. This is no surprise. You guys have been looking at it for a long time. I can't speak to the details, but I can say that I do support the project. One of my concerns tonight, as someone who uses the railroad station weekly, is that since no plans have been presented for the use of 25 Church Street space, and the probate court is slated for the Parks and Recs building, is why then do we need to upset everyone who uses the railroad station for the benefit of one organization? I counted somewhere between, in the vicinity of 25 organizations and individuals who use the station. We as taxpayers help fund the purchase and the renovation of the station. On February 9th, 1998, town council minutes say about the railroad station naming. The railroad station naming, Mayor Peitler said that Clifford C. Chapin accomplished many things during his tenure as first selectman. One accomplishment that stands out, however, is enabling the town to acquire the railroad station. Mayor Peitler said that he had talked
from time to time with Clark Chapin about dedicating the railroad station to honor his father and commissioning a portrait of Clifford C. Chapin. That hangs in the station now. A motion was made by Mr. Pilla and seconded by Mr. Henderson that the railroad station be named in honor of Clifford C. Chapin, and that an appropriation of $5,000 be approved, and its approval recommended for the Board of Finance to commission a portrait of Mr. Chapin, which will hang in the railroad station, with a recommendation that the funds come from the contingency account. Mr. Piller goes on to say that the action is most fitting for Clifford Chapin, as he, an honorable man who did a great deal for the community. Mr. Lillis supported the motion, saying that he knew Clifford Chapin had worked for at least 8 years on enabling the town to buy the station. He did not give up. Mr. Lillis also emphasized that Mr. Chapin had served the community well for over 20 years on various boards and various official capacities. Mr. Clark Chapin said that he wanted the public and local organizations to know that the meeting room in the railroad station is available for public use, can be booked through the Chamber of Commerce, and serves meetings as well. So it was really meant to be a public space, not used for one. I believe it's served the community in that capacity since. The art gallery was put on Church Street to foster the arts and stimulate activity on a struggling street. I believe it belongs there. If we're going to support an art gallery, I think that's the right place to have it. Beyond this, I'm also concerned about the negative impact that moving all the town agencies out of the downtown will have on all the small businesses. I would like to see that study that the EDC has done, if there has been one. Thank you.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bear, and thank you, everybody, for your generally civil discourse. So moving on.
Excuse me. Yes, you did, but it's...
Oh, we're doing it at the end. I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you. So, item 4 on the agenda is approval of the prior minutes.
Motion to approve the regular town council minutes of 12/12/2016.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Very good. Motion carries. Thank you. I'm going to skip over Mayor's comments. Let's get right to the Town Council and discussion of the pilot proposal and payments. I would invite anybody from Amoresco or the property owner to address the council.
Good evening, my name is Joel Lindsay. I'm with Amoresco. I think what I wanted to do, last time I was here, I gave a fairly lengthy presentation, which had a lot of information in it. I'd be happy to revisit any of that, but I did want to do one thing in particular, and I just want to see if I can get that up on the screen. This is going to run out of technology failure.
Let's see if we get it working first.
This doesn't sound like it's on. Is this? Yeah, it's pushed down. Okay. There we go. Sorry for the delay. It's starting to come up now.
Sure, why don't we hit the lights? Try the other one. Do them both. I think we can see, right? Whoa.
No, I can't.
Nope, do one. Keep one on. That's good enough.
So, again, there's a lot of information that I presented before. I have that information available if you want to revisit anything. But one thing that we talked about when we were last here was And it's obviously a very important issue for those that live near the site and properties around that property is what is the visibility? What is going to be the visibility of this project? So what we did is, and we've done this on a number of projects, we basically create a computer rendering of the project using the available data. And what we can do is we can do renderings that can show it from different viewpoints. So what we thought was important to do was basically try to represent what this is going to look like. And again, it's a rendering. It's not exact, but it's if anything probably conservative in terms of visibility. Basically, have something that shows what the project would look like viewing it from Candlewood Mountain Road. This is a photo that we took from the road. You can see the stone wall there, and this is looking at a portion of the property which is actually elevated where the solar is going to be, which is back through the woods. At this location, this is where the buffer, which there will be a buffer, there'll be a significant tree buffer all around this project. In fact, I can't think of a project that would be more invisible or a location that would provide less visibility to anybody than this. At this location is where actually the buffer will probably, just based on the configuration of the project, be thinnest. So this is the picture that we took. If you
said thinnest, right, Joe?
Thinnest by narrowest. Narrowest, yes. So this is essentially this is the rendering that shows what it will look like. Now I know it looks somewhat the same, and that's really the point. Is there's going to be significant buffer. This is also taken during the winter, so this doesn't account for there being leaves on the trees for half the year. But this is kind of a worst case. What's going to happen is there will be, back where the array is, there will be some trees that will be taken out, as we've talked about, as everybody knows. But this will still be a significant buffer, and the array itself is actually elevated on the higher elevation part of that property, which is back through the trees. So this is effectively the view, probably the most visible that the array could be, and really there's not much to see. So again, I go back and forth between these two. This is the level of visibility that we're talking about, and this is really where the buffer would be the thinnest. We've provided this information to the mayor, to the council. We wanted to get this out in this meeting so that people had a better sense. I know it is very difficult to kind of conceive in your mind's eye something like this, and it seems like it's going to have a large effect, but it really, because of the configuration of this site, because of the elevation, because of the location of the trees, because of what we don't need to clear, and that is really the majority of the property, we can really keep this project very, very well hidden from any view. So I wanted to point that out. There's many other aspects that have kind of been hit on tonight that I just wanted to, I'll just very quickly hit on this. I guess I'd like to just state that Amoresco does a lot of these projects. We do them in New England, we do them with towns. We do not subvert or go around permitting processes or environmental vetting processes. That's something, as an environmental engineer, that I consider very important. It's something that's going to be done to the fullest extent here. In fact, we will be filing inland wetlands and Army Corps wetlands for this project. We will not be destroying or affecting or building in any wetland areas. There is a wetland area up on the mountain that we have mapped already. We have actually already surveyed that, so we are looking at that. We were aware of it from the previous information, but we wanted to get a definitive mapping of that. That will go on in terms of meeting those requirements. Years back, this site was determined to not have any, by the state, to not have any endangered species issues. That was a letter that came from the state 10 years ago. when the project was going to be developed for 600 units of housing. We are going to get a reassessment by the state for that. We have to do that. That's something that is already in process. The Siting Council is the way that these projects have to go. They go through Siting Council process for these types of renewable energy projects. That's the way it works in the state. Siting Council process can be very transparent for the town. The Siting Council normally will have hearings here at the town. There will be site visits. So there will be considerable input at that point, both locally and by the state. So I wanted to point those things out. I don't know, Peter, if you have anything you wanted to point out, but those are some key elements that I want to just get on the table for you. And you know, again, reiterate, this is the type of visibility we're talking about, or lack thereof. And I'm happy to take any questions that you all have, certainly about any aspect of it.
I would only like to just add one thing. We did get a large group of opponents because of visibility, and that's the visibility that we've done. And I'd like to just pass around some of what was stuffed in other mailboxes that came out that brought the opposition. We wouldn't mind passing that around. This is what generated so much of the negative feedback, because what was put in mailboxes is not what we're building. And we did, as one of the parties said, we didn't put up balloons and we didn't let people know, but we did put up balloons. You just can't see them. Matter of fact, I have pictures of the site with the balloons installed, and they're invisible.
The only thing I'd like to say about that is that it's a certainly that's one way to look at it. But with the balloons, you're basically looking at the same thing as the picture that we took. What we've done with the rendering is we've been able to put the arrays there, superimpose it, and then actually show it in conjunction with actually taking out some of the trees, so that we're not overstating the amount of buffer that will be there, but more correctly showing what it will be. Not what it is now, because there will be a little bit less, but there's such a significant buffer that you can see that it's really not visible in any meaningful way.
Just in response to saying that, Peter, you said that so many people came out against it because some mailboxes received a flyer. You promised me months and months ago, you promised some other residents that you were going to let every resident on the road know about this. You never did that. So less than 24 hours ago, maybe 30 hours ago, I'll say at the max, one of the people who live on the street put this in mailboxes and found throughout the weekend that so many people who lived right next door knew nothing about it. And I do enjoy that you show these pictures, but the point is, how far away are you from there right now? Is that as far as the closest house will be? Remember I asked you about how far away? I mean,
right.
I won't see it from where I live.
Right.
And I think it's important that balloons, no balloons, renderings, etc. The bottom line is, as people have said no, it isn't, yes, there are people who don't want to see it, who would. But the bottom line is, regardless of your balloons or no flyers or flyers, you're going to cut 80 plus acres of 100 and some year old trees down that won't be able to be replaced till probably my great-grandchildren's time. That is the problem. It's in the wrong place. It's not the solar that people don't like. It's not you. It's not them. It's nothing personal. It is forest. It is beautiful, lovely forest. And I still say, if every single person who said they didn't think this was such a big deal took a walk through there, they'd say, holy mackerel, I never realized it looked like this. And now it's going to be gone, the walls and everything else. So let's just put in perspective, you're not the devil incarnate, and we're not stupid. The bottom line is you want to cut down 80 trees, clear cut it, turn it into, as many people said, a flat surface. There will be runoff. We don't know what it'll be. Yes, you have to do these things based upon the Siting Council, but after you ask us, as the keepers of the keys here, after we have to vote for giving you an abatement. That's what this meeting with you is all about. The rest of it is personal opinion. So, you want an abatement, And according to the contract, you also want the town to cooperate with the company in applying for state, federal, or other programs providing tax assistance to electricity generated in the state. So not only do we have to take a hit and not receive all that much tax, you want an abatement, as somebody said earlier. Lots of businesses in this town would like that. But then we also have a caveat in here that we have to then cooperate further at some point. And what does that mean to us? And what is the intricacy of that? We don't know. So many of these questions, you're saying they will be answered, but we're asked to vote on this abatement prior to that. And I think that's where the rub comes, you know. So appreciate that Peter says there were balloons there. Apparently the people who live across the street where this photo was taken were never told that those balloons were put up. So I just want to counter that. Not everybody showed up here because they got a piece of paper in their mailbox.
Right. Yeah. And we're doing the best job we can, and we're certainly far from perfect in terms of trying to get the information out on this project. You know, I again point out this is not going to be a kind of a construction project where we flatten areas. We're not going to flatten. The project itself, the actual physical elements of the project can be placed on this property without having to change the terrain in any significant way. In fact, it will remain a grassed area all around the panels. It will not, and as I've stated before, there's obviously going to be quite a detailed process and a plan submitted for stormwater management. These projects, and we do lots of them, solar panels do not create runoff issues. They are pervious. There will be no significant change in the pervious area of the array. You know, I think, you know, we've continued to try to work with the mayor and with the council. We want to continue to give information. We want to make sure that you have the information you feel you need. And you're right. You know, believe me, I go up in front of towns and work with cities and towns all the time, and I do not assume that they don't understand what they're talking about. And I'm hoping we're not the devil incarnate either. So.
Mary Jane, you had a question?
Yeah, in regards to the balloons, did you notify the residents that you were raising the balloons? It seems like nobody knew that the balloons were flying, and I think that's, you know, something that should have been done, obviously.
Yeah, I take your point. I think that honestly, this is much more useful than the balloons. The balloons are just not going to be seen no matter what. They're just not going to, there's just too much trees there for anything to be seen. I think I just feel like this is a more realistic, because this is actually showing what it will be like.
But I think if you were looking possibly from like Lynn Deming Park upwards, you might have been able to see the balloons, and you know, people from different areas, maybe from Kenwood Mountain Road, they couldn't see it, but.
Keep in mind that the system itself is not going to be any higher than 8 to 10 feet high. So it's going to be completely blocked by the height of trees all around it. It's not going to be visible from the lake. You'd have to be at least 200 or 300 feet in the air at Kenwood Lake to be able to see any part of the system. I just think putting balloons at 8 to 10 feet, which is the maximum height of the system, it's just not going to, it really wouldn't be visible at all. But I take your point about notification. I understand.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, sir.
Just for Tom.
Question, public comment is over.
Do you mind if
Would you mind moving to the public area?
Thank you. I just wanted to see the picture since I live right next to it.
Very good, thank you.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Francis.
You are with Amoresco. You're going to be the people that, if this gets through, and you'll be panel man. But what we're talking about now is an abatement. It's not an abatement to you. It is to Peter and Bill, wherever he is. And I think that we've all had a lot of talk about this, and of course I've been one of them. But I think that our business here tonight with you is to discuss and take an action on whether or not we think this pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, is the right thing. So we'll never all agree on whether putting the panels there is the right thing. But I think we have, Mary will probably back me up on this, we have to get to the business at hand here. So as much as I enjoy listening to what you have to say and your expertise, believe me, I know I do. But I would like to know, I'd like to ask a question of the people that we're signing this contract with.
Well, it's a tri-party agreement, so we are part
So
of it.
you're part of this equally?
Because
the personal property is their big concern. They would get taxed on the value of the solar panels.
But the
And
taxes
we
are
also
being
have
paid for
obligations.
by the realty company.
I don't know who pays the taxes.
Right?
To be perfectly honest.
Essentially,
You
yeah.
have a contract.
It's a.
I've seen your contract
yeah,
with
it's
them.
ours is a lease payment net of the taxes.
Yeah.
But we're all tied into it. We have obligations in that agreement that we have to meet, and that's why it was important. We're all together on it.
Okay.
In terms of the mechanism of the payment, yes, but it's tied into the economics of our project, which we've provided in detail.
They're the landlord, right?
And they're the landlord.
Okay, I'm just reading your contract with them.
You can address me and Joe, no
I just,
problem.
I just think that we'd like to hear something about why, I'm just gonna ask a question you had before.
Sure.
Why do you feel, as opposed to every other business that struggles in this town, or anybody starting a business, why do you feel you are owed or deserving of an abatement for something that you are going to get right off the bat, $450,000 a year with increases, 2% per year, less the taxes? So, I mean, you're the mechanism for this.
It's a good question, and I appreciate why you're asking it, because at only reading a portion of the agreement, you say, well, geez, $450,000, and the pilot program is an average of $140. You're getting all this extra money. But what happens is, if you really look through and we provided this to the mayor and some of his consultants, if you really take a look at our operating expenses and our debt service, when we originally came up with this formula, we actually took our net cash flow, and the earlier program shared it 60% with the town and 40% with the developer. And that now we've negotiated and talked about it and have haggled over it for about a year. And in its current state, it's more like 73% to the town and 30% to the developer. So what happens is, at a certain point, there's not enough money to buy the land and get financing and actually make the project not financeable at all.
If I wanted to start a business and I didn't have enough money to buy the building and get myself going, I guess I'd either have to wait, find another backer, but you're going to end up with almost $10 million or more by the time the 20 years or whatever is up, and you're paying about less than $2 million for the property. So I guess I'm just not doing the math the way you do, and I understand you have operating expenses, of course. My question was, why are you any different, although it's more money, than any other business? Tell me why we should do this for you.
Well, really,
I think
Katie,
you've heard people say pros and cons. Let's hear some of the pros.
Really, I'd like to answer that more specifically, because
Pros
while
and
it
cons.
looks like we're getting $10 million, what really is happening is, over the 20 years, we're earning around $1.2 million, and the town's earning about 4.2. Now, because of the way the pilot program is structured, and meeting with the mayor and meeting with Kevin, they don't want to count certain taxes that we're paying on part of the land, because we're buying 305 acres. The development is only on 80, but yet still we're paying for the 305, and we're paying taxes on the 305. So in the end, after you pay for insurance and administration and debt service, in the end, we only end up with, over the 20 years, $1.2 million.
I'm sad for you.
Can I-
No,
it's not sad. It's just only so much money.
Can I just add a couple things? To try to address what you're asking, maybe this is a little bit helpful. And this was, I think, alluded to. The state has a regulation that they passed that basically says, for renewable energy projects, towns have the option to abate the taxes on these projects completely,
100%.
down to 0%. Now, why does that exist? I guess would be the question. I mean, they're trying to encourage the development of renewable energy because it's viewed as a benefit. In this case, it's a benefit. You could say it's a global benefit. Yes. Well, that maybe doesn't resonate. There's a monetary benefit for the town because we are trying to maximize the amount that we can pay in taxes for this project. Certainly not asking for the abatement to be, down to 10% of what would be paid. And the other aspect of it is that these projects are different than when we call it industrial. It's a project that basically has no traffic, it has no services required.
As do the woods that sit there now.
That's
they
right.
They require nothing, and they give a lot.
So, Katie,
again, I'm just let's not beat this horse.
It's a good
Pros and cons.
question.
Somebody else might want to ask you a question.
And just the because of the project, not to be negative or anything, because of the project and because of the large cost to buy these panels, that's what makes the tax rate unable for. That's why the state passed a law, because you can't pay that much tax and afford to actually buy the panels.
If you were going to put these, Peter, someplace as on top of the land use, the land management area, or a flat farm that someone pointed out earlier, a lot of people have done that. They've put wind and solar in order to maintain their farm, to receive some payments. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
Well,
That's what it's all about.
actually, the state is very much not in favor of massive deployment of solar on farms.
Well, that's good. That's nice.
And so
we're talking about the 80 acres now on the top of the mountain that you want to take away, and whether you level it, you're still going to take and stump all of those trees, and that is going to change a lot of things. As permeable as you say the panels are, that's fine. We can't argue it because we don't know.
I think we've done a lot of these.
Well,
we do know.
Yes, you do.
Actually.
I'm saying we don't know. So anyway, as I said, I've said to you what I feel about what will happen to the property, and I would, and I know how I feel about the demise of that. And I said, you're not evil. I don't know about you, but I just wanted to have some sense of but one of you saying something about why you felt you were deserving of this, because we don't have a lot of money in our town, and we to reap something, you have to. What did someone say earlier? The pluses and the minuses, the risk and the reward. So but we could talk about that forever. So thank you.
And just in closing, in other words, the alternative is the tax rate that we're getting now, which of course instead of $4 million is $1 million.
Well, it's not $4 million.
Miss Richardson.
So 80 acres and 20 megawatts, what's the direct impact to New Milford residents? How many New Milford residents are you going to be powering over that 20-year period?
This electricity is sent directly to the utility. It's not directly tied to New Milford residents. It's sent directly. It's sold directly to the utilities.
So
there was a solicitation by the major utilities in New England, and they asked basically for proposals to build larger scale renewable energy, because we're trying to diversify our supply in New England and not have to have as many gas plants like what was rejected in town. They're looking to try to, and in some ways being pushed to develop more renewable energy. And so this is fed directly into the transmission system, goes directly into the transmission system through the substation that's nearby.
So essentially, you're asking us to ask the 28,000 taxpayers in this town pay for something over a 20-year period, which I'll almost, God willing, be 50 years old by the time that's over, if you don't extend that another 5 years, for something that they may not even benefit from directly.
I don't think you're paying for anything. You're actually getting money.
Well, you're not paying the taxes.
Wow. We're paying a lot
You're
of
paying
taxes.
some of the
We're paying,
taxes, but you're getting a significant abatement in taxes. Is that not true? Over a 20-year period.
May I just? That's not really true. Okay, the reason for the pilot program, I think it's really, people call it an abatement. It's really not an abatement, because the important thing about the pilot program is the total payment is pretty much what we would pay anyways. It's just that when it's paid and the amount that it could be adjusted. In other words, your normal tax rate with an assessor, right? Every October you reassess, and in January you figure your mill rate or however that's done. So your tax adjusts every year, every 2 years, depending on those two features, the assessment and the mill rate. So you don't know what the taxes are, right? You assume it goes up about 1.2% per year. Those are assumptions, right? And then and the town makes their budget. But in this case, we are forced, because of this RFP, because of this program, we are forced to enter into a power purchase agreement with the utility company. So we need to know what the tax rate is. And if you can see with the pilot program that you have in front of you, it's less in the beginning and more later on. That's basically an order so we can afford to finance the creation of the project. Then once it's in place and it's paid for and we could pay our costs of building it and cost of debt service, then we're giving that amount of income. I think it's $2.8 million. It's a $2.7 million. So it's a significant amount of taxes compared to what you're earning currently.
And it's not necessarily an abatement. And I think
30,000 a year. That's right.
Let me, Mary Jane, you had a question?
Yeah, could you just explain again, I know you talked about this once before, about at the end of the project, at the end of the 20 years, exactly what are the possibilities for the property? Is there any possibility that this property could be assigned to Weontenaug Land Trust?
We've talked to the Weontenaug Land Trust, by the way, and we're working with them for, talking about types of gifts and what would happen in 20 years, and we've got a significant amount of additional land there, what to do with it, because it's really just growing trees. But at the end of this 20-year period, Joel, can you talk about the decommissioning?
Yeah, decommissioning. And we talked about it before, but it's decommissioning means taking the system away. It's a long word for taking it away, right, and restoring the site. It will not be restored with, the trees won't, it could be replanted, but it's the system will be taken away completely.
The panels, the sticks, everything.
There's really only posts driven into the ground, so those would all come out. They're 4-inch posts, so there's really very little impact on the ground itself. There'll be a few concrete pads that would also come out, and the site would then restore back to either remaining in its state as cleared meadow, or it could regenerate as forest.
But you will not be the owners at the end of the 20 years, is that correct?
No, we will be.
We're just the tenant.
They'll be the tenant. We'll be the owners.
You'll still be the owner. So do we need to have some concrete information about any kind of negotiation you might be doing with Weontenaug about possibly donating the property?
I think it's preliminary discussion now, and I mean it's 20 years from now.
I just ask, you're talking to Weontenaug about the outside, the open space area, not the place where the panels are going.
That's right.
Let's just be clear. You mentioned that as where the panels are. They're
Right.
talking about not that area, some other area around. That's open space.
I don't know, to me would be a critical piece to how I feel about this property too. I'm having a really hard time with cutting down 80 acres of trees too. You took us up there, maybe that was your mistake.
Mr.
Beautiful
Wargo.
piece of property.
Yeah, first of all, we had 18 people speak about the panels. 12 said no, 6 said yes, but every one of them was in favor of solar panels. Just not here. I heard that loud and clear. But if you think about it, 80 acres of panels somewhere in New Milford. First of all, you don't have 80 acres of open farmland anyway. So wherever you put the panels, you're cutting trees down. How many, I don't know. And I would venture to say there's not many places in New Milford that you could put 80 acres of panels and not see them. But this place, you won't see them. So to me, this is the best place because you won't see them. Now, that's one fact. The other fact, it's not so much where in town you put them, it's where in town you put them in relation to hooking the power up to the power plant. And the power plant, the Rocky River, is right down the hill. So you have a lot less transmission lines from the solar farm to the transmission place. So that's a benefit. And somebody said we should put it where, on the landfill. My God, I don't know about you, but I don't want to see all those panels on top of that mountain. You'd see them at 27,000 citizens in New Milford would see that every day. I don't know if that's a good place for them. It's another place, but it's not necessarily a good place. Then they said Century Brass. Century Brass could probably produce 20% of the power needed to replace the power that this place is. So it's not a viable spot. Just because it's an open spot doesn't mean it's viable. It has to be large. To get 20 megawatts, you have to have 80 acres. Century Brass has 70 acres. So it in itself is not big enough. So you couldn't use Century Brass. So when it comes down to placing this plant with respect to the location of the panels, to the transmission lines and visibility, this to me is one of the best places in New Milford. Now, as far as the taxes go, that is generating $30,000, about $30,000 a year in taxes. And I would venture to say that if this proposal doesn't go through, it'll be generating $30,000 in taxes 25 years, 30 years in the future, because they're not going to build anything there. So that's all we're going to get is $30,000 a year. You put this project in place, at best, you're going to triple the income on taxes. Triple it. It's not a matter of deduction. Yeah, yet we're getting less if you look at the value of the panels, they're not paying 100%. But those panels wouldn't be there. So there wouldn't be any basis for a tax. All you'd get is $30,000. So actually we're getting a windfall of 3 times the taxes that we're getting now. And we're really looking at only about a 25% reduction over the life of it. It's not that big a deduction. But the bottom line is we'll make more money on this proposal for this square acres than we would if you just lived trees.
Let me just say one thing, because
I have
a lot of
for you. That's all. If you could answer this, then you can maybe say, maybe you're going to say this.
Sure.
What's our approximate total budget for the town that we pass? Our education and our...
About $100 million.
Okay. So this will take a $30,000 tax payment, and as you just said, you could triple it. Okay, it's 75 first, but that's close enough. So $30,000 in our whole overall budget is, I guess I'll say a drop of the bucket, you know. And it's, again, I'm just taking this, just Frank, everything you said, very salient. But what's going to be destroyed will no one in this room, nor their children, nor their children's children, will ever see that look the way it does now. So I'm just going to say, for a drop in the bucket and 2,400 homes that are not any place we'll ever see, I don't know. I don't see it.
Let me say one thing about that.
Of course you
I know it does sound, $100 million just to play devil's advocate without taking a position one way or another. You'd be surprised at how tight our budgets are and how far every dollar counts. And people scoff at $75,000, $100,000, but at the end of the day, we're coming into budget season. That's a teacher, a police officer, it's a public works employee. But without going down that road, we could talk. We're going to get to the finances in a second. Again, without taking a position, a lot of people did raise a number of issues. Our town planner raised a number of those issues, and I believe gentlemen have made efforts to try to address them, and that's what was reflected in the Schedule B. So a lot of people did raise the issue of erosion and a stormwater management plan. That wasn't originally included. You don't have to do that. I mean, that's unless the siting council required it, but it's a legitimate concern of the community, and we spoke to our wetlands enforcement officer, and he's got some practical suggestions in managing that, and you've agreed to do that as well. So you would address the stormwater management issues. You would address the road and there's going to be, you're proposing logging trucks on the road. So you've agreed to a bond, to cover that. People are concerned that there's not going to be a buffer. So you've agreed to a landscaping bond to ensure that if there's no buffer, $100,000 is going to be paid to install one. So you've got a very important incentive to make sure that you actually do comply with that. And we haven't discussed it, but I think a reasonable condition too would be that it would be conditioned on approval by the siting council, which it is anyway. It doesn't. It's implied, but the siting council, I think, as you've said, is a process in and of itself. It requires public comments, and regardless of which way the council goes or the citizenry feels about this, I could say that the town would be an advocate in front of the siting council as well to make sure that these issues are addressed and that it's not relying on 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 individual citizens, that those concerns are part of what the town's responsibility is as well.
Isn't the town made up of all those citizens?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I think, I just have one question, just to get off that. Can this, like some energy agreements, be transferred or sold so that we're looking at you as the owner of the property, but so that suppose Amoresco changes its mind before you get too far to this and you might sell it off to ABC, or can it be forestalled for any amount of time? We're going to give you an abatement. What if you don't start the project for whatever reason? Will we sit then without ability to offer the land for sale, or how does that work? Because I know some energy things can be transferred or sold.
Joe, is there a timeline on the RFP?
Yeah.
Okay, what about the sale to another company?
There, in terms of, I guess if you're saying, basically there's going to be the requirement that whoever owns it is going to have to meet the obligations that are in the power purchase agreement.
Right, but if
There's
Amoresco doesn't want it,
there's normally.
what if you change your mind in January, February, March, whatever, and John Smith and company want to take that off your hands, but it doesn't come out like anything. So they want to buy it.
They would have to adhere to the
There's
same agreements.
There's always provisions in any kind of a power purchase agreement for there to be the ability to make some transfer. There's specific ones in this this is governed by the utilities.
No, I understand. So
Now,
I just want the public
can I
to know.
finish?
Remember that some of this is for our
Can I
people
finish?
at home. Yes, I want you to finish and answer because I like everybody to hear that it can happen.
Anything like this it's an asset. It's an asset that could potentially be transferred. Our intent with all the things we build is we would be operating this. It's going to be required that the asset, once built, is going to have to meet strict requirements for providing power to the utility, settling that power on the New England ISO system, making sure that all those obligations are met. So that's a serious obligation that we are fully planning on taking on. There are actual definitive milestones and a timeline that we have to meet to meet basically the utilities' demands on this project, and that means getting through the permitting process, getting to starting construction, and then completing construction. We also are going to have to deal with some things that aren't in our control, like how quickly the utility themselves can interconnect us. They can be slow sometimes, but what I wanted to also say is that we're actually we're incurring significant cost to basically provide assurance to the utility that we are following through. So when we sign this agreement, we have to provide security to them. With the utilities, you don't have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you negotiate. So there's a lot of things that are kind of risks on our part that we're willing to take to move forward. But it's significant. And there are milestones that are
built into the contract that make us meet this timeline.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sure.
It does not appear that we're going to conclude our council meeting by 9 o'clock. I would.
Sure, motion to extend the meeting by, let's say, half hour?
Yes.
So 9:30, and then we'll take it up then. Second? All in favor?
Aye. So the
Opposed?
bottom line to my question is, yes, it can, as in other utilities. It could be transferred, so it won't be you that we say we trust you. It could be anybody else who will have to abide by the same regulations.
Well,
Yes?
all the regulations, all the requirements.
Yeah, okay.
But I can tell you that it will be us.
Okay, that's good.
It will
I
be
hope
us.
so. I hope so.
And you can look us up, we're a public company.
Ms. Richardson, let's see what Jessica has to say.
So we've gotten both of these schedules of payments over the 20 years. You had spoke a little bit about your costs during this time. Is there any way that, have we gotten that information, and would you be able to provide that?
Let me
Would you
kind
be
of
able to flush that out a little bit.
Let me, and I'll ask John. So this is very complicated. These power purchase agreements and abatements. As we started getting into it, you see, at the last meeting when Amoresco was here, I said, well, let's get their costs, let's figure out what the revenue is. And when you start getting into it, it is not something that you want to wade into as a layman. So on the advice and talking with our attorneys, there was an individual who acts as a consultant representing both sides in these kinds of transactions, energy and private and governmental. And so I engaged with him, Graham, I forget what his last name is.
Glenn Walker.
Oh, Glenn Walker, excuse me. So Glenn has been interacting with Amoresco and Mr. Diodario and getting that information, some of which was confidential and sensitive, which, so they were able to exchange that. And after some extensive negotiations, which John, you can get into a little bit more, you see the original proposal for the pilot program would have been a total for 20 years of $2.347 million. Over the course of these negotiations, we were able to negotiate that total payment upward by $400,000 to $2.747 million. And that's based on the exchange of this information and ultimately a recommendation from Glenn, right? That this is a fair, from a financial point of view, not understanding anything else about the project itself, but from a financial point of view, the 2.7 over 20 years is a fair kind of financial agreement. And John, if you could just expand upon that a little bit.
Just very briefly.
Yeah.
You might want to consider the fact that this acreage that the project is going to be put on is a parcel that's 163 acres. And of that, 80 acres is what the project would consume. But I believe all 163 acres would be effectively encumbered. And presently, that 163 acres without anything on it is producing a tax revenue to the town of $19,000 and change per year. What this project would do is put effectively personal property in the form of these panels and racking on the land. And because it's, well, you could argue it is an improvement to land, like a building, that would then be depreciated like a building over a long period of time. But the assessors in Connecticut and the state is recognizing it to be personal property. And as such, it gets depreciated very quickly. The personal property, the racking and the panels here, there's 78,000 panels, and it's, I believe, I can't speak to exact amounts, but I've heard figures ranging between 20 million and 30 million as the value of personal property and of installed, delivered personal property with interconnection to the grid on this land, okay? And with that, let's just say you put 20 million of personal property. You have, in Connecticut, a fairly quick depreciation schedule for personal property, although this is going to be there for 20 years. So that went into this calculus, depreciation. And as you'll see, under this negotiated schedule, the tax payments over time will actually go up. That's what's being proposed. And Glenn took a look confidentially at both the developer and Amoresco's finances, and they thought this was about, as good as they could do for this type of project. I hope that's responsive, Your Honor.
Yeah, fair enough. So that's how we got here, and like we said, you know, we've gone back and forth with Glenn on this, who has been involved extensively with you gentlemen. I appreciate that, and this is the recommendation from a financial point of view. Now, the other issues are, and you could certainly take issue with that, but that's one component of it. The other issues, like I said, may or may not be addressed in the Schedule B. With the bonds, with the submission to wetlands, with the stormwater management plan, and with the siting council involvement, and that's why this is a deliberative body. Yes, Ms.
I would just like to say that, I don't know, maybe other people, other council members are feeling the way I'm feeling, but perhaps we could postpone this or schedule a special meeting in another week to make a decision on whether we're going to vote yes or no on the tax abatement. How my other
Any
council members
thoughts
feel
on
about
that?
it.
And how does Amoresco feel about that? I know there is a time constraint.
I want the council to feel like it's doing the right thing and making a decision the way they need to make it. So
right.
I'm not gonna.
It's next Monday.
It could be. I mean, a special meeting could be held. You know, any day.
I mean, you know, I'm the one who's the most vocal about this, and a week isn't going to change anything for me. If somebody else at this table needs another week to decide they don't want it, well, sure, take it. But you know, if that's what you're saying, then I'm fine.
Just asking how other people feel.
I can tell you right now, I might not be for this project for the reasons stated by many of the people here. But the question in front of us is tax abatement, right? And it's really difficult for me to be against something, but I have to vote based on the question that's in front of me.
Right.
And I do want to clarify, because one of the commenters said that, you know, by signing this, we were endorsing the project. And I read through it again. There's nothing in this agreement, and I wanted to make that clear. That's why I said the whole thing about the siting council, that the financial part of it is not an endorsement of the project, that, you know, you are still going to be producing plans and schematics and answering questions before the siting council. And I did, but I wanted to make that was not in the agreement.
We 100% understand that. Understand we need to go to the siting council, and they will come to your bodies to get your input. And we do understand that by agreeing to the pilot program, you're not agreeing to all the aspects of the projects, only as it relates to the tax payment schedule.
But you won't go forward without it. Isn't that the point of this? I mean, I can't say you won't, but that's the whole point of you asking for it. If you didn't want the abatement, you wouldn't be here asking us for it. We wouldn't have seen you if you didn't need this abatement, correct? You could have just gone ahead, like everybody else does. They go through the siting council, then you would have come and said to the mayor, hey.
Excuse me, Katie, everybody else that produces power doesn't go ahead without meeting with the town first.
Okay, but if you didn't need the abatement, would we have gone through all of this?
In order to build generation size power, you need to meet with the town to get a pilot.
But we're talking about the abatement, as Jessica just brought up. I really, as much as I don't want it, I don't want to continue this conversation about something that is not why we're here. It's about this abatement that we're here.
It's a pilot, and whether it's an abatement is something that could be argued by tax experts. I want to make that point.
Okay, it's a pilot.
It's a pilot. It's two different things.
Let's call it that.
It's two different things, and yes, this facilitates moving the project forward, and that's just being upfront about it.
Yeah,
that doesn't, but that's separate from the issue of is this an approval? This is an approval. If you were to vote on it, it would be approval or disapproval of the abatement, not of the project as a whole.
Right.
So that's just.
I understand that. So that's why I'm just saying, if somebody wants time, that's fine. But I know if you think, I'm vocal about it.
Sure, no.
I don't care.
Sure.
I don't care.
Your opinion is very well stated.
Yes, there you go.
Mr. Chamberlain, yes.
I've given a lot of thought to this particular proposition. Yes, I fully understand that it's a tax issue, but it's an issue of trade-offs, whether what we're getting and what we're giving up are in some way comparable. I take that really seriously, since I consider us stewards of all the assets and treasures of this town to which we were entrusted when we took office, and hopefully that we're going to be turning over to someone else when we depart. In response to your question, Katie, whether anyone's mind is going to be changed, I will say right now that were I asked under the present circumstances, I would not be in favor of this. The only thing that might change that equation for me is if ultimately we were to give something back to the town. And that was Councilwoman Lundgren's suggestion that perhaps if ultimately the use of this property resulted in acquisition of land, to the town or to entities within the town that would ultimately enrich it, then my feelings could be different. Obviously, I can't suppose what that would be or what it would take.
I think we can suppose what it would be.
The one thing that would change it for me is if the land reverted to the town or to some public entity.
Not to the town.
Right.
I don't need any more, liabilities.
Right.
Well,
but we are to or something like that.
Some public use.
Yeah, open space. I know that's been discussed. So a portion of the property you're proposing be made available for continued use of trails through it that people have been using. I think what Mr. Chamberlain is talking about is a reversion of the portion after the solar panels are removed to an organization like Weontonaga or HVA or Candlewood Lake Authority or something like that. It hasn't been discussed, but okay. There's a proposal to extend this, to vote on this. What's the thought of the council members? Would more time to review these issues or ask questions make a difference? I know it wouldn't for you, Katie. I know.
I want to make a motion.
Sure.
How do you like that?
I'm sure. Okay. What's your motion?
My motion would be to vote on the pilot payment in lieu of taxes agreement requested by Amoresco and the New Milford Clean Power LLC with regard to the Candlewood Solar Project as proposed by parties on Candlewood Mountain Road.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Request a roll call vote, Mr. Mayor.
Roll call vote. So I'm assuming there's no further discussion. Mr. Benz.
Thank you, Mayor. On your PPA agreement, is there any room at all within your agreement to have some of the power subsidized, so to speak, for economic development in New Milford?
I would have to say it's not included in the agreement. That's not a possibility. It's a fairly straight up agreement where we are obligated to provide all this power and in fact schedule it every day on the grid with the utilities that are purchasing it. So there's not room for something like that in this particular contract. We would love to look at other options for the town, but it wouldn't be within this particular contract.
I'm sorry, Attorney Tower, I'm sorry. You had something. I just wanted to make sure I forgot about you. I
just wanted to mention a couple of small, quick things that I didn't know if the town council, I hadn't heard it discussed, but first is, if I mentioned earlier that the raw land itself is generating into the town tax revenue of $19,000 and change per year presently without any improvements to it. If you take the proposed payments and you average that, it would be $137,000 per year in average, which is 7 times its present revenue.
Attorney Tower, was there a calculation as to the percentage of the abatement? I know we don't like using the word abatement, but discount or whatever it is that Glenn was able to estimate.
See, that's so. You would ask me if we were to adopt this pilot payment structure. Effectively, what kind of tax discount would these gentlemen be getting?
Right.
Okay. Very tough question to answer because the answer ultimately depends on what the ultimate value of both the land and that personal property is. Remember I told you about 20 million installed personal property, but depreciated. And that, you know, I've heard some calculations that this is approximately 50%. We would be getting 50% of what they would pay in the absence of an abatement. The problem is, according to Glenn, if we hit them full boat, they couldn't do the project. So that's one thought. The other quick thought is, I wanted the council to be reminded that this project is proposed to be on top, of course, in the land that's under the MPRDD zone, the special zone for that concentrated development when it was owned by the previous owners before Wells Fargo. There is associated with this 3 other parcels of land that the developer would also acquire, and that's the industrial parcels in lower elevations. That is a total of, I believe, about 155 acres. That 155 acres, because they're zoned industrial right now, are generating about $55,000 of tax revenue to the town, compared to your 19 on raw residential land. And this developer, I believe, has talked to you previously about other clean energy thoughts on that. I just wanted you guys to remember that the pilot effectively is a front contingency of those kinds of transactions. I don't think this developer would be, you know, in the absence of a pilot, I don't think all the parcels would be adopted, would be acquired. At least that's my understanding. Maybe Peter can confirm that.
That's right. We're buying the whole parcel.
Yes, the whole parcel.
Mr. Bass, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Thank you, Mayor. And you're basically backloading the revenue to the town just because of your financing agreement? Is that basically why you're kind of backloading the
Yes, if you just take the average, the project's unfinanceable and it can't be built.
We did push for money up front, as you know, but you know, and Glenn, you know, was working on that. But this was and under this proposal after year 6, you'll see there's a significant bump from 10,000 in additional payments to 25, and it gets into some 6-figure numbers of 109,000 and then up. So, any other discussion?
And you've been working with the mayor as far as after the 20-year lifespan of trying to negotiate some kind of land.
Not necessarily with regard to what's going to happen to the land. I mean, I really do view it. It's private property at the end of the day. You know, so part of in another life, you know, I was, you know, as an attorney and I appeared before land use boards, and people would come in and log a piece of property, and it was very hard to kind of stop somebody from doing that because there are very strong private property rights. So I'm very sensitive to the fact that there are trees on this property, but I'm also acutely aware of having tried to fight logging operations, how difficult it is if a private landowner wants to do that, you know, that they can. One thing I'll note, you know, we have a very strong ethic in New Milford of land preservation and land conservation, and we purchase a lot of property in conjunction with the state, but also with our own funds to preserve open spaces, whether it be forest, farmlands, you know, what have you. And I think New Milford's proud of that record, but you know, the only reason we're only able to do that by appropriately developing lands that can be developed. So that's a consideration to take into account. It's not like we don't preserve land in New Milford, but you know, sometimes some development is necessary in order to allow us to preserve some of those prime parcels. There is a recommendation from the Farmland Commission that this didn't conflict with their mission, and that they didn't have, I can't put it in their words, but they didn't have an issue with this proposal. I'm sure we'll hear from the Conservation Commission. I'm sure they'll come out. Let's assume that they'll say that it does conflict with their mission, and that's something for the council to weigh, though. Mr. Bielmeier.
If I could just make 2 quick points. One is the 2.375 sort of starting point on your Schedule A that precedes the latter 2.75 mil. Does actually not reflect the initial starting point of 2.1 million. So I just want to put that out there, that there was you know, there has been
that's a good point.
growth and stretching and negotiation that has taken place. So and we don't have that earlier number on the table, but it did start at a 2.1 million over the 20 years. And then the last point that really hasn't been made tonight, that for whatever it's worth, is this was part of an RFP process. 11 projects across the tri-state area were selected for this solar opportunities, and all the fuel cell opportunities and other types of renewable energies that had been put out there as projects were all denied because of the cost disparity, kind of what we're talking about with solar. It's just so expensive to get into these kind of projects. Fuel cell was 10 times that. So none of those projects were selected. So anybody that, again, renewable energy is important to, solar energy is important to, needs to understand that, being selected as we have been, we can't predict the future, but if we decide to turn it down, it is no guarantees that the next time a selection process like this comes up, that doesn't get weighed in and factored in as to whether or not, New Milford's selected.
Fair enough. Any further discussion? There's a motion on the table for a roll call vote. In the absence of further discussion, we'll call the votes. Start with you, Mr. Bass. In favor, aye or nay?
Is this just for the abatement?
Just for the abatement. We're not endorsing the abatement with the conditions that we've discussed also. The pilot, excuse me, you're right. The pilot with the conditions we discussed, and to make sure that's in here, stormwater management, conditioned on site and council approval. And I think John has to make some tweaks to some of
Yeah, we
things.
haven't really submitted this to legal review, and we thought we didn't have time to do it today because we were focused on the schedule.
Okay.
Can I just
Yes.
also ask, has the council all seen Schedule A and Schedule B to the, okay, I just.
Yeah, John, could you just explain why it hasn't gone to legal review, or how should that be affecting our decision?
Specifically, we had some discussions today, for example, about the adequacy of some of the bonds. For example, right now, I think there's a $50,000 erosion and sedimentation control bond, and there was some, the planner questioned the adequacy of that and also what form it should be in.
The planner suggested that.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is what was suggested by Kathy, so I don't think that's kind of the issue.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, we had, I never got to the brass tacks of the terms because pilots, I will tell you I've gotten other pilots from other towns. I can speak to you about those, but they have some provisions I would like to see built into this one that's a little bit more town favorable. This was drafted by their attorneys, and I think we need to tweak a bit.
So let me say that. So it sounds like, attorneys are looking for a short period of time to continue to review it and make a recommendation. With that being said,
just as the parliamentarian, procedurally, I don't know that there is any basis for interrupting a vote in process. And this was effectively a vote in process.
Well, then let's be clear about what the vote is on. Is it the amount or the legal terms?
Can't we withdraw the motion? To me, it's about the pilot.
Pilot.
Payment in lieu of taxes. We have a Schedule A and a B. If it passes, they have to still discuss many options and aspects with us. And I would imagine our attorneys would be involved in that.
Sure. Okay, fair enough. This is the financial term. Yes, Mr. Bass.
I'd like to defer to the town attorney. When we're voting on this, does that include just the payment or the payment and the term?
I think that's a question asked to the person whose motion it was, but I believe
So it's just the payment?
Councilwoman Francis just indicated it was the financial terms. Maybe I misunderstood.
I did. The pilot, which is the payment in lieu of taxes.
Just the payment, not the terms.
It's just to see if we're willing to do it. If we're willing to go with this payment plan.
The payment, please.
So I wouldn't sign anything. It would just, the council would set forth the outline, the parameters that have been discussed here. Attorney Tower would finalize it, and then we'd come back with the final version, but council would...
Final version for approval?
Final version for me to sign, yeah. But I think Katie's motion was to get a sense for whether or not the council is going to approve even the what's been recommended thus far, right? So
There's far more decisions, discussion by attorneys and aspects of this that'll have to be gone over,
Sure.
as you said, so I.
Fair enough.
Move ahead.
Mr. Bass.
So to the town attorney, just for my own cell phone clarification. So if there is some kind of change as far as the terms, we still have the opportunity of the council to change whatever happens here.
Just to be super clear, the mayor would be ultimately signing this on behalf of the town, and like any other contract, there's a provision of our charter, 602G, that provides that the town council needs to give him its approval before he sign a contract. My question to the mayor and the applicant is, if you vote on financial terms tonight and you defer the approval of a contract to be signed, let's say to the next town council meeting, does that meet the applicant's schedule in terms of having to report to, I believe, I'm not sure who it is that's the deadline is in front of?
It's the utilities.
If I may raise
Wait,
a point, well,
he just wanted to say something. I think the gentleman just wanted to say one more thing. Could you hold on? Go ahead.
If we're talking about then a second, essentially, approval of the terms, basically the next meeting, which would be the 23rd, that's probably workable. It's the reason I'm a little bit hesitant is because we may be, between now and that meeting, we may be having to make a decision to move ahead and basically sign the agreement with the utilities before we have that. But that, that's...
Well, may I ask, if you have to wait the 2 weeks?
If I may raise a point,
Let him decide.
again, if I may raise a point
It should be both.
of order, we were in the process of taking a vote. The only appropriate actions by this panel during the taking of a vote are points of order as to exactly what is being voted on, and there were certainly those. But if I may respectfully ask the chair to conclude any points of order, but to restrict the discussion to points of order on the vote and to continue with the vote, because procedurally that's what we should be doing.
Okay. So the point of order has been discussed. The vote includes broad general terms that we discussed tonight with a final agreement to be negotiated and drafted by attorneys and approved at a subsequent meeting. With that being said, Mr. Bass, sure, I hear you. I'm confusing the issue. Right.
But we're really, what would be done in the future, and our attorney is the one I would want to put you under undue pressure beyond what you've already done. Maybe it won't take 2 weeks. We can always have a special meeting. But what we would, just so I'm clear, what we would do in the future, if this is okay to go forward to the future, is we would be giving the mayor, who consults with the town attorney, the okay to sign the agreement.
Right.
So if during the discovery period by our attorney, he finds out that there's something here that is not agreeable to him, you and he would discuss that.
Oh, yeah.
And you would come back and say to us, our town attorney does not recommend I sign this.
Right.
And all we're doing now, so you understand that I'm not trying to force this to go any further, is that it's strictly the pilot, because we just keep talking about it, and I realize I'm part of that, but let's just say whether we're willing to go or not go with the Schedule A and the Schedule B of the payment in lieu of taxes. That's what the motion is.
I'm confused.
I think that requires an amendment, because I'm not sure that that was exactly what we started voting on. There is, in fact, a vote in progress. So
voted on the financing, not the
No, I was only just explaining my version of what the mayor is going to do with the town attorneys, because you want to know.
If the councilwoman wants to amend...
I don't want to amend anything. I just want to vote on what I said, the pilot payment in lieu of taxes.
Which is just the
Schedule A and
Just the
Schedule B.
financing,
Just the
correct?
financing.
Yes.
We're just strictly talking about financing.
Correct.
Just
All right.
the
I'm
financing.
gonna have
Correct.
the motion read back.
I'm
Just
clear.
the financing.
Well, I'm just gonna read, Ms. Francis moved, for action on the requested tax abatement pilot, payment in lieu of taxes agreement requested by Amoresco and the Milford Clean Power LLC with regard to the Kenilwood Solar Project proposed by the parties on Kenilwood Mountain Road.
That's it.
Is that,
That's it.
I want to defer to the town attorney, is that correct?
Ms. Francis, should that be clarified to say with respect only to the Schedule A financial terms?
Well, Attorney Powers, if you think that's what I should say, then
Okay.
yes, I will.
I thought that's what you said. I thought that's what you said.
Well, just for
It wasn't read by the secretary.
it sounded like,
I remember
it sounded
Peggy
like
saying
John's voice, but it was my voice.
Fair
So
enough.
there you go, and Stephanie will add that.
So
I'm
with
sure.
that
Now we have
clarification,
board
points
finance.
of
Is that
orders.
good,
I vote yes.
Okay, and we're back
Is
to
that
voting.
Pete? Is that
Mr.
covered?
Bass was
Yes.
an aye.
Aye.
I gotta tell you, I don't support the project. I'm gonna be completely honest with you and upfront. But this is the question in front, and there's no reason why I wouldn't say aye.
Aye.
No.
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 One of those rare moments where I get to be a tiebreaker. I think I'm going to explain before I say anything that, like I said, I don't have a position on this, but I do believe, Ms. Francis, gotta let this.
I think
let
there's
me
a point of
speak.
order, Mr. Mayor. I think the rest of us had to vote without explanation. I think His Honor does too.
I'll say aye. Fair enough. It's aye. We'll work out the terms of the agreement with Attorney Tower, and submit a final version for the council, for acceptance. Fair enough? Any further discussion on that?
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Town
gentlemen,
Council.
and thank you, everybody. We will work to address these issues and concerns.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize, but I've been holding something back here.
Yeah, yeah.
Before it winds up on the table.
No, get out of here.
We don't want you hurling on the table.
We've already extended
Something's already
this.
flying around my house.
No, very much understood. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll be in touch.
What time do we expect the meeting?
We did it till 9:30.
We're not gonna make it.
Move to extend to 10 o'clock.
Second.
All in favor, extend to 10 o'clock. How about a 5-minute recess, to kind of
Definitely.
take care of business, and then we'll resume. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Yes, a little. It would be good.
Back in session, we'll move on to item 7 on the agenda, Public Works. Mr. Zarbra, I appreciate your patience. I'll invite you up and entertain a motion regarding
Okay, make a
the item.
motion to approve a supplemental appropriation of $574,138 from either short-term borrowings or another account as deemed appropriate by the Director of Finance to be deposited into the Century Enterprise Center account number 430-40000-53005 to meet the $500,000 matching obligation in the $2.5 million state grant to remediate the property, including but not limited to remediation of the concrete slab.
Second. Okay. Mike, before you get started, as a lot of you know, this is with regard to the Century Brass site, and we tried to spell it out in the agenda item as much as possible. But this is for, the additional remediation that we think would get to the point where the site would be usable with this. And Mike, if you could just give a little background on what's requested and what it'll go towards.
You don't have to read what's in the memo right now. It's I will explain it to you, but I think the mayor just opened up with a quick briefing. We've talked about this issue a few times. In our original agreement, we had a $500,000 matching contribution in our assistance agreement with Connecticut DECD. You dealt with a portion of that November 14th meeting, in which you transferred some funds from an existing account we've had, and we had asked the finance director, mayor, to look at other accounts that would be practical to allocate our share from. What remains on that is a $266,000, $138 balance. In addition to that, our first contractor, which was let go for failure to basically complete his portion of the work, There's obviously payments that were made to them for certain work that was done. Some of that was duplicate work, particularly on the inspection side, as we march forward with the second contractor. But even some of the payments that were made to the initial contractor were needed to be duplicated to a second contractor. We've identified that as about $308,000 worth of work or worth of funds that have been duplicated in expenditures. We believe they are fully due back to the town because this is a bonded project, 100% performance, 100% payment bond. But that's obviously a lengthy legal issue and process that we need to go through to obtain those funds. So in order to keep the project moving forward, basically we're looking at, an additional allocation of at least that amount of money so that we don't, so we can keep the project moving. Obviously, basically we're looking at just cash flow issues right now is what it boils down to keep the current contractor moving forward with progress. And I think the mayor put it right, is what we know today. And there is a revolving door of issues that come up between regulatory agencies, between our legal process that, can kind of muck up the money issues as we move forward. So,
Question?
Yeah, sure.
Could you give us a brief chronology of the steps that we can expect to see from this point forward at Century, assuming we've got the money to do it?
Sure. The scope of the project right now is for them to, and I'll try to keep it fairly simple without the cleanup issues that go along with some of the other the testing. But we're at a point where we've gotten the building demolished and down. Steel remains on the site. Steel is becoming is a big issue as to how it's going to be dealt with in terms of recycling or not, or disposal with PCB contaminants on it. That's one issue that we're going to put aside for the time being. We had asked the current contractor under their scope to basically move this steel to the backside of the site, the very north end of the slab. It'll stay on in the existing portion of the slab because technically it has contaminants on it, is contaminated with PCB, so it cannot be moved off that slab until either we contain it in some way, but that's our most logical place to move it. There are other debris piles on the slab right now, particularly the roofing materials, which we've gone through a little bit of a delay in getting rid of because of some other regulatory issues, but authorization to move that off of the slab, that's what's being done currently. And then if you recall, I think at our November meeting, we spoke about slab removal versus slab remediation. The original intent of the project was to mill an inch of the slab off, and substantially, the reason we did that was to limit the town's exposure to cost overruns. We could manage how much of the slab could be milled, at any one time. We've done the same thing, but transitioned the risk basically to the contractor for removing the slab in total, because I think as we've all talked about, the intent is to remediate that site, clean it up, and try to sell it off, at least a portion of it. And to do that, we basically needed to remove the slab. The milling of the inch of concrete would have basically gotten us a clean slab, but very potentially the slab would have remained intact, or could have remained intact based on the scope of the work. We likely would have had to do more milling on the project. And when we discussed that with the contractor gave us a proposal to remove the slab instead and handle the entire slab as remediation waste, rather than just the top inch and or whatever deeper sections we need to remove would have been handled as remediation waste. So with
Just
that
to jump
in
in,
mind,
Mike, it was really, the price that he gave us to remove the slab and be done with the issue was comparable to what our general contractor was estimating. You take off a 1 inch, then, you test it, you got to take off another, and then each time requires them to come back. So the price was really competitive.
It was
to
a
just
very
get rid of
competitive
it.
price.
And then it's gone.
And then it's gone, and we're left with basically, soil issues that we can test and we can verify whether or not they're clean and what the further steps are that need to be done to complete the remediation process for what we consider a property transfer under the Property Transfer Act. So this gets us quite a bit further what the exposure is and how we limit, obviously, the cost of the project, because there still are obviously unknowns as to what we would run into. But his scope is to only remove what we basically tell him he can remove.
We believe that we can get at least 50% of the slab removed. We think we can get a little bit further than that, but I think conservatively we're under the with all of the numbers we have right now and where we're at, we can remove at least 50% of the slab. We think about up to 75% would not be unlikely under the scenario, but that a couple of things have to break correctly for us to make sure we get that far. So,
any further question? And just so to be clear, also, the other accounts I did speak to our finance department, Mr. Hasselkow, Mr. Palmer, and they advised to insert the language from or in other accounts the assigned fund balance from 2016 projected surplus. And told me not to say anything more than that. So there's a projected surplus it could use, and that there would be money available from that if it was appropriate. Mr. Ward.
Removing the slab, and I understand the slab, 6 inches, whatever, across, that's not the way it is. There are places in that foundation that cement goes down 10 feet, 10 feet by 10 feet. Does that include removing that cement or just the cap?
I'm going to defer to Mike.
Other than foundation walls,
no, not foundation walls. There were foundations put in the middle of that place for the draw presses, the extrusion presses, and those things are huge.
The negotiation, the change order that we've signed with the contractor puts them on the risk, whether that's 2 inches of concrete or 10 feet of concrete.
Okay,
they've
that's
taken
my
on.
Okay.
They were given the drawings. They were given.
Okay.
The design.
I don't want to come back and say, well, we didn't count on the.
They're aware of all that.
They're aware of it.
They know where it is and what it is. Okay.
They should. I'll say it just a different way. They should be aware of that, Katie. But the contract that we signed with them, or the scope that we identified for them, or really they identified to us, is that risk is borne by them now. That's the thickness of the slab.
Can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, removal sounds like a great idea.
No, a lot more options.
It has been recommended by our TRC contractor and Mike and everybody that's reviewed it. That's why we got to this point. Mr. Bass, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mike, about the $308,000 duplicate expenditures. Is there a plan in place to recoup the 308? Because it's kind of general what you're putting here.
We're in litigation to recover that money right now.
And you were saying 50% of the slab with this amount of money that we have?
Correct. There's quite a few unknowns about some of the things going on. We talked about the steel, which is a big unknown right now. When we put this together, frankly, we didn't even still know about the roofing materials, what it actually could go out as. It's since been determined that it's a excluded, what's considered, there's basically 3 types of PCB contaminant levels. And not PCB contaminated at all would be the first, really. There's 4 of them. An excluded product, which is only basically a low-level PCB under 50 parts per million. A bulk product, which would be a product that contains over 50 parts per million, or remediation waste, a product that was contaminated by or with PCBs by some other means. Oil spills on the slab is a remediation waste because it was contaminated by a product containing contaminated waste.
Could you give us a clarification when you refer to roofing? When I think of roofing at Century, I'm thinking of those big extruded concrete panels. Is that what we're talking about, or something else?
It was panels overlain with tar, basically, and then paper product, insulation product, and gravel. Effectively. So it's that whole system. There's about 8 different products in there, and it's probably more than what I just mentioned, but it was just built in layers, concrete being one of them, the most bottom layer really of the roof that sat on the steel beams, and then everything above that was, building products to help it insulate and protect it from weather.
Specifically the concrete layer, do we know whether that was asbestos containing material?
To make it light.
It was the roof. The original known quantities in the roof was all asbestos materials were contained in the roof. That was a product that was going to be dealt. It was all going to go out as asbestos containing material. ACM is what it was going to be disposed as. Issues got brought up throughout the demolition process, and to get through the full regulatory process, we basically needed to test it for PCBs, which should not have had to been done, but nonetheless, that's the process we had to go through. We found low levels of PCB in there, which in determining it, we basically could identify that only certain materials contained it. So in other words, it wasn't contaminated by a spill of some sort. We knew that the products in there were the actual products that contained PCBs, but they were very low level, like 2 to 5 parts per million. That makes it an excluded product. It can be dealt with and handled at the facility we're taking it to that way, but it's a slightly different cost. Unfortunately, it's a little bit higher cost. But
thank you. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Zarba.
Appreciate it.
We've got some other town employees here, that have been waiting patiently all night for the agenda. Would anybody object to moving up to the senior center issue and the issue with the grants?
No.
I see Ms. Carolyn back there. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to authorize Mayor David R. Gronbach to apply for and sign all necessary documents in connection with the Connecticut Community Foundation grant. This grant request is in the amount of $4,500, and if secured, will be for participating in a National Council on Aging pilot curriculum titled Aging Mastery Program. The program will run starting in spring 2017.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Carolyn, if you want to come up and just explain what it is.
Basically, it's a lot of programs that we already offer. But the beauty of this is we're going to get paid. It's a community foundation. It's a pilot program. It's a core course.
Don't say pilot.
Thought about it. I said, it's not
You
enough.
can get a no vote on that one.
So it's a 10-week program, running it twice in the year. And the Community Foundation is paying for all the fees incurred with it. It is a licensed program. They're paying that. They're paying the participants' fee and the training. We are facilitating, but as we do with every program, we partner with the VNA, United Way, the hospital. And so this is an organized way of doing our programming.
Fair enough. Any other questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then moving on to item B. You've got B and C here.
Right. Motion to authorize Mayor David R. Gronbach to apply and sign all necessary documents in connection with the Western Connecticut Area Agency on Aging grant. This grant request is in the amount of $5,000, and if secured, will be used to hire a chore service coordinator to assist in developing a chore service program for the 2016-2017 fiscal year. This grant requires a 50-50 matching grant.
Second.
Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Gasker.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this position a town position?
Yes.
It'd be a new,
For this year, I'm sorry?
It'd be a new staff position?
We actually have somebody in place. We're just going to add a few more hours to her day, her week.
Great. So part of that addition will be paid by the grant, and part of it will be picked up from the town.
This $5,000 for this year, we have to match it. Some of it I already had in my payroll, and then we have in-kind match with volunteer hours, and we have some donation. I have actually got somebody to donate a little bit already. So in-kind is also office space, so that's how we're matching that $5,000.
That's great. It doesn't have any impact to the budget.
No.
Super. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And item C.
Motion to authorize Mayor David R. Gronbach to apply and sign all necessary documents in connection with the Western Connecticut Area Agency on Aging grant. This grant request is in the amount of $15,500, and if secured, will be used to pay for the chores service coordinator for continuing the chores service program into the 2017-2018 fiscal year.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Bass.
Thank you. So when we move into the next fiscal year, it's really 31,000 versus 5,000.
Right. Well, this year would be 10,000. So what we're doing is we can see already what we can do with the 5,000. We're just tripling all our services and fees.
And the tripling, is that going to require an additional staff member, or are you?
No, we're going to just add hours to her. The coordination is a lot of vetting the contractors that we might hire, volunteers coordination, working with faith-based church facilities, and then the scouts and things like that, and some volunteers that we have. It's all about keeping our seniors in home, independent, and we do it already. This is really organizing it, and there's a lot of paperwork with the grant and a lot of coordination. And Leo, our municipal agent, they've been doing this. Now it's organized, and they've been after us to really get the funding so that we can organize it better. So.
And Karen, just to expound on that, we had this conversation a number of months ago when I was getting calls from senior citizens that were just asking for help to throw out things in their house.
Right.
And so I called Carolyn and I said, what do we do about this? And she said she had this program in place, and we talked about trying to get, whether it be Public Works or any other town employees, volunteers, like we said, teenagers from the high school youth agency. And this is what that program is actually for, to establish something specifically for that, to perform chores for people that can't do it themselves. And like you said, we're doing it haphazardly now. It'd be nice to be able to do it, under an established program where we're paying people to do it and monitoring, what's being done.
There's a sliding scale. That's the beauty about the municipal agents. They know the clients who can afford a certain amount of money towards these, and so it's organized much better. And these are little chores. The bigger ones go to the handy dandy man that we're a partner with, and also Rebuilding Together. They do roofs, they do complete window replacements and everything. So everybody's pretty excited that we're going to finally step into this, and we're going to get funding for it. So
there's a need for it.
Yeah.
Like you said, a lot more people are aging at home, and this is part of that.
But don't admit it.
Current company included.
You've mastered the aging already. So.
Never admit it.
So with that being said, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Thank you for your work.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And thank you for waiting. Thank you, Leo, for that as well.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
You bet. Yes. What's that? We got a couple more minutes, I think. Let's see what we could get through. How about we do Parks and Rec?
Motion to accept the following donations from Jeremy Winter, Beyond Urgent Care, 141A Danbury Road, New Milford. One oversized Christmas bear decoration valued at $267. A monetary donation in the amount of $5,000 to be used towards the new playground equipment at Lynn Deming Park. Beyond Urgent Care requests an appropriate sign or plaque be placed at the playground regarding the donation.
Second. Question. Is this a reasonably attractive, oversized bear decoration?
Yeah, it was great. It was in Parks and Rec during their holiday kind of decorations. It was very...
They liked it, huh?
Yeah,
It's not at my
yeah.
house.
Very nice.
That's what they're donating?
Very nice, yeah, that giant bear. You don't see them very often.
No, you're right.
But the monetary donation is very much appreciated, and will go far. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's get the library out of the way.
Motion to authorize Mayor David R. Gronbach to sign agreement with Lothrop Associates LLP Architects for the schematic design phase of the renovation and addition to the New Milford Public Library for the previously approved amount of $162,700 at the November 28th, 2016 Town Council meeting.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We got Mr. Balero's been here for all night as well, Personnel Department. Can you give us, the quick version of the job description? And then, I don't want to rush it, but it has been reviewed by the Personnel Committee.
Yes, so the position is the recycling manager / foreman. It's going to be a new position in town. This position has actually been worked on and developed by a bipartisan recycling committee over a number of years. It's a collaboration between Mike Zarba and Katie and Mary Jane. We all kind of sat down and went through this. But it's this adds an additional foreman to the Public Works Department. It helps kind of satisfy the ratio between manager to employee, which right now stands at 34-1. So we'll kind of cut that in half, but it's also going to give somebody leadership over the recycling plant and responsibilities in dealing with the public and some of the problems that are going on over there, as well as the knowledge to be able to take some of these products that are coming in and finding new revenue streams for them and cutting costs to the town, so.
So most of you are not, are familiar with the discussion about a recycling kind of manager at the recycling facility. This would satisfy that role. It's not necessarily full-time, part-time there. That person's gonna share with the rest of Public Works and be a foreman and fill what's Mike has described as a very necessary need for middle management over there as well. From a budgetary point of view, it can be done within the budget. There are cost savings already with regard to salary lines in there, and we're looking forward. I know they are over there to getting somebody to fill this role. Any further discussion? Was there a motion? Yeah, there was a motion. She made the motion already.
Who seconded it?
I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Now, we're almost at
Thank you,
10 o'clock, which is our end date. We skipped an item. Mr. Bassett, it was yours.
Yes.
Would you, can we get it now, or do you want to put it off to the next meeting? I'll leave it to you with the caveat that I would try to get you as much of the documents that you requested as possible.
At the next meeting?
No, I would have it before then. Well, I just,
Yes, I mean.
I assume it as you get
meeting?
requested. Yes, so for the next meeting or
So we can have it to look at before we meet.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Could I also ask a question?
Sure.
We had from Personnel Director an update. Will that also be pushed forward to our next meeting?
Yeah, I mean,
Just very quickly.
yeah, what's the update?
Yeah, so my update was just, I've been working with a number of the committees. Those, conversations continue to be ongoing. I wanted to thank each of the committee members for their support in what we're doing. We filled a couple of key positions in town, so the sewer superintendent actually started today, backfilling Rob Fidelka, and then we also filled our highway superintendent. So Robert Raza is actually our new highway superintendent, so he started December 30th. So
He was at New Fairfield for a lot of years, right?
At New Fairfield for about 22 years.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But yeah, that was my update.
Yeah, what do you
Minute 30 left.
Okay, just saying.
We're counting down.
Thank
Okay,
you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
And that's time to go do executive
So with that
session.
caveat, I'll get you some documents. We'll continue the other item until the next, town council. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, we're gonna do.
Executive
But the
session.
other.
Well, we have executive and,
I'm sorry, I completely forgot.
can we extend?
Can we go beyond 10? All right.
Extend for 5
Let's
minutes?
extend for 5 minutes so that we could get our executive session and the rest of those things. The Tower Gardens is going to be off.
Someone second the motion to.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, so we'll go into in item 13, close the room for executive session.
Wait, did you say you were taking the time?
Okay,
For the record,
back in session.
No motions were taken during executive?
No
session?
actions taken during executive session. So in item A, entertain a motion.
Okay, motion to approve the settlement that was discussed in executive session at the number that was discussed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And thank you, Mr. Tower.
Move
Item
for,
B is
request to accept the donation of the double emblem POW-MIA flag from the prisoner of war missing in action Connecticut Forget-Me-Nots.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All
And
right,
then D.
and motion to authorize Mayor David R. Gromback to sign the contract with Cartograph Systems Incorporated. The software product is the program that Public Works uses to manage work orders and prioritize, evaluate conditions of all of the roadway infrastructure items.
Second.
This is the program Public Works use. Same thing, same contract. Funding is all there. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we've got some appointments.
Okay, motion to approve the appointment to the Lanesville Fire Substation trustees, Frederick C. Aldrich, unaffiliated, for 12/1/2017 to 11/30/2019.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And a correction.
And motion to correct the Historic Properties Committee, Ellen Applebaum, Democrat, for the term period 12/12/2016 to 11/30/2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you,
Motion to adjourn.
ladies. Motion to
Second.
adjourn.
Second.
Yes. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody.
I'll give you that now.